This podcast is a member of the Place to Be Nation family. Visit us at placetobenation.com, the only place to be in your pop culture world.
It's time for Place to Be Nation's Year in Pop. Each episode, we go back in time to a year in the past and take a trip down memory lane and see what was going on in the worlds of news, sports, and pop culture with your hosts, Andy Atherton and Scott Criscuolo.
Place to Be Nation Pop Experience. Year in Pop is back. Welcome. We are closing out a decade. Only the second time we've done that on this show since we've been doing it. Hey there, this is Andy Atherton, one of your co-hosts, and we are talking about the final year of the 80s. Sadly, the end of the greatest decade of all time, but we're going to give it a nice send-off and look forward to the 90s. But before we do, let me get my co-host in here and our guests and get the show on the road. First off, he is my co-host, and he is the podfather of PTBN. You hear him, he runs the Wrestling Network on the Place to Be podcast, Main Event, Jenny and Gems, all kinds of great shows. Scott Criscuolo. What's going on, Scott?
Good evening, Mr. Atherton. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Year in Pop, 1989. Yes, we are saying farewell to the greatest decade ever for lots of things. And 1989 definitely is going to be an interesting year because I think culturally we did start to see a shift into what would become the 1990s. So I'm looking forward to tonight because it's not, like we talk about stuff tonight and we even go as far back as we don't even go as far back as say even 1986. And in just 3 years, I feel like that things changed tonally in pop culture. So I'm looking forward to tonight, but let me, if I may, me bring in the rest of our team. Well, we'll begin with my purveyor with me. He wanted me to call him a purveyor, so I'm doing it tonight. He co-purveys with me the NWA Saturday Special. He is, of course, a member of NWA Crock and Roll. And if there is one guy who does not look forward to the 1990s, well, maybe the first half of the 90s anyway, the Doctor, Dr. G, George Ribellino. How are you?
Man, you really make me think I hate the 90s that much.
You're like the wrestler. But... You're like the wrestler. You're like Mickey Rourke, except I can't see you slicing your finger off on a cold cut machine. But who knows? Mickey Rourke. Who knows?
I just hated the music mostly in the 90s. To be
well,
honest.
We'll get to that. Anyway, we got the 80s tonight. So
I'm glad to be here. It's fun to talk about the 80s. We've had a lot of fun, in this last decade. So it's kind of sad that we're kind of saying goodbye to it, but hopefully we'll give it the proper send-off that it deserves.
Absolutely. And Andy, why don't you finish off our quartet?
Our quartet, it would not be the same without this guy. You can hear him on all kinds of podcasts, all kinds of feeds, North-South Connection. He is 1/3 of the Extreme 308 Dance. Over also on the North-South Connection, he is This Week in NFL, This Week in Sports, depending on what time of year it is. Over here on this very feed, he is currently on Pop Goes to the Couch, covering the Mighty Ducks Game Changers. Jay Arsenio D'Amato. Johnny, how you doing?
Wonderful. Great to close out the decade and with some honorable guests here with the CEO, a podfather, and a doctor. I'm honored to be around such royalty to close out this decade.
Well, we're honored that you're here with us, as always. All right. So, Scott, anything else to say to open up the show? Or should we get on to the how we're living?
Well, we're 19 again. I'm looking forward to tonight because 1989. I feel again tonally is a very different. You feel the 80s leaving. Like I feel like 1989 is mostly in the music, but a slight shift into what we would see in the 90s, at least in the early 90s. But yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
All right. So just to kind of set the picture, talk about the stats. So the average cost of a new house, $120,000. Your average income, $27,450. Your monthly rent though was $420. Average cost of a new car, $15,350. Gallon of gas was 97 cents. Oh my God, that was one. I started driving in 1989. I long for the days of $1.03, $1.08, $1.11.
Ain't that the fucking truth? Good Lord.
But the inflation rate was pretty high though, 4.83%. Your postage stamp was 25 cents, and your movie ticket was $3.50. So the economy was prices were starting to go up a little bit. Not incomes weren't going up as much, but cost of living definitely was going up, getting out of the decade of decadence. Some of the popular toys, for the girls, Babysitter's Club was becoming popular. That book set, bubble mowers for the little kids, car beds. This is really when they were starting to I had several friends who had little brothers who had car beds. Double Dare was a popular Nickelodeon show. They had a home game. Electro Lab, which is one of those things where you tinker and you build your own circuitry. G.I. Joe Crusader Space Shuttle. I was so upset that this came out, and I was kind of too old to have G.I. Joes or keep collecting G.I. Joes because it was friggin' cool. The biggest G.I. Joe toy I think I had was the hovercraft. Never got anything bigger than that. Tiger games were getting popular also. We had Jordan versus Bird, a handheld game. Monster trucks were coming a lot too, with your handhelds, remote controls. Your first CD player, what's that? PJ Sparkles doll, a Strata scooter, and your Ghostbusters set basically has a proton pack and a trap and all that stuff. Of course, it's all plastic. Some of the video games we saw in 1989 in the arcade, we were playing Arch Rivals. You guys remember Arch Rivals? It was a basketball game where you had to also punch your opponents.
Not really. I don't.
Yeah, I have it on. I have it on one of those arcade classics collections you have, like for your Xbox or something like that.
Right.
Yeah, Midway, I think, made it. Yeah, it was like almost like a high school game, and you just got to pick these I guess prototype different ones. You want the big rebounder, you want the scorer, and they would have the animated cheerleaders were a little endowed, trying to get the little teeny boys to play the game. So Champion Wrestler also, Crime Fighters. I think we talked about this last time. Cyberball, Fighting Fantasy, Golden Axe, which was a big game. MVP, Ninja Gaiden, Super Monaco GP, which was one of the first really cool driving games. Here's a game that people still love to this day: Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. 4-player game, one of the first of its kind. Ate up a lot of my quarters. You had Turbo Outrun, and then I'm sure all you guys remember this game, WWF Superstars.
Hell yeah.
This was my go-to tag team in this game was Bossman and Savage. Scott, who did you like to play as in this game?
I liked Perfect, and who else did I use? Perfect and DiBiase, maybe. I kind of liked, like you, I kind of liked the heels. I don't think you could be the LOD. I think they were the...
Oh, no. You're thinking of WrestleFest.
Oh, that's WrestleFest, yeah.
Yeah, this is Superstars. This was kind of... this was a little before, like a year or two before WrestleFest came out. You had, Honky Tonk Man was in it. I think it was Hogan. Andre was in it, I think, actually.
Oh, right. I know what you're talking about now. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I did have WrestleFest in my head.
Yeah.
I think I was always Hogan.
I love the Bossman Slam. And I got to tell you, Savage's coolest move in the game was not his flying elbow. It was his running clothesline. That was pretty cool. Go look it up on YouTube. It was, for a game in 1989, it's pretty damn cool. Dr. G, do you remember this game?
I do. Savage. I loved Savage because he was my favorite at that time.
Yeah. Johnny.
No doubt.
I know you're not the biggest video game guy sometimes. Do you remember this ring a bell, this game?
Nah, not so much. I was big on when later on when Royal Rumble came out on the old Genesis. That was I was hot on that. We'll get to that in the 90s.
I actually I did a little rearranging in my family room, and it's not hooked up at the moment, but I have my Sega Genesis on display now and all the games, and I have that game. So next time you make your way up here, we gotta play it. I was working at a bowling alley at the time, and they had this game. This is one of the games we had. So, I spent a lot of my breaks playing that game. The NES was still kicking along. We had Afterburner, Baseball Stars, Friday the 13th had a game.
Yep.
Gyrus, which was a fun space game.
Mhm.
Impossible Mission, Jordan versus Bird, Marble Madness. Qbert came out finally for that. Rolling Thunder, Shinobi, Super Dodgeball, Tecmo Bowl, game we talked about on many shows here.
Oh, God, Tecmo Bowl. Probably still to this day, even better than any Madden, the greatest video football game ever created. It was 8 plays. It was simple. You just needed a block or be the Raiders. Very simple. Actually, Dr. G will. Actually, all three of you will appreciate this because it was evident that you were one of 3 teams. I'll just say this now. You were the Raiders, you were the Chiefs, or you were the Giants. You were the Giants because arguably LT was the best defensive guy in that game. My brother played a 16-game season with the Giants, and LT had 64 sacks. I mean, he did not get blocked. He was faster than half the running backs. It was crazy. You were the Chiefs because Christian Okoye, who was the running back, and he just knocked guys all over the place. He was amazing. But of course, the number one team that everybody ever was the LA Raiders for one reason and one reason only. Tecmo Bowl. The greatest video game athlete ever made by any American or Japanese guy that ever did a video game. You could argue, some people say Michael Vick in Madden 2004 was pretty amazing. Tecmo Bowl was literally untouchable in that game. You could run him all the way back to your 1-yard line, and he'd score a 99-yard touchdown run.
A lot of guys would do that.
Everybody. I found a notebook some time ago when we were getting ready for this episode. Of course, G will make fun of me because of all the stats and writing I did back as a kid. But my buddy and I did a season with the Raiders because he was a Raider fan. The Cowboys were okay in this game. They weren't great. So I was always the Raiders with my buddy. And he loved to play defense, and I was offense. So he had Howie Long, who had like 1 billion sacks. And one year in 16 games, Bo rushed for 5,563 yards and 58 touchdowns.
Oh, God.
It was fucking ridiculous. He literally could not be stopped. And let me tell you something. Giants Raiders was always the Super Bowl. And we would have LT and Bo go all the way back to the 1 and then try to race all the way to the other end. It was amazing. Anyway, the long and short of it is, as great as graphics have evolved over time when it comes to video games, particularly football, any sports, RBI baseball, etc. Tecmo Bowl will always be, in my opinion, the greatest football video game ever. Because it was simple. You had 8 plays. They would do a sequel a couple years later, which we'll get to, Andy, down the line. But the first one, everybody had 8 plays. 4 runs, 4 passes. Either you scored or you didn't. Simple as that. It was amazing. I love Tecmo Bowl. Always will. Always will.
All right. You guys have anything to add?
Do you work for them?
I wish hey, let me tell you something. I wouldn't be living where I am now not that I live in like a Mr. Robinson's neighborhood or anything, but I wish I did, because they deserve the pub. Those guys at Tecmo and Nintendo back in the day. And of course, in Japan they had their own version. But Tecmo, the original Tecmo Bowl, did not have the union's approval. Gene Upshaw clearly, threw his clout at Nintendo. So they had the players, but it was only their last names, and there were no nicknames. It was Los Angeles, New York, Dallas. Tecmo Super Bowl, which would come out, I think, in 92, the union approved. So then we had Cowboys, Giants, Raiders, and you had the helmets and everything. So anyway, I wish I was getting royalties, because they made quite a bit of money in those few years. So
sure, they still do. All right, so we also had Tubin, came out for the NES. A game system had just come out the year before and was starting to add a little bit to its library. There was crossover. You had titles that were multi-console. Altered Beast, Golden Axe, but you had Space Harrier 2 and Tommy Lasorda Baseball on the Sega Genesis. I had an NES, and I believe I sold it by this time to get a Sega Genesis. And I was all in on Sega Genesis for a very long time. Another new product, though, came out as well in 1989. The Nintendo Game Boy. Simple games had that kind of a oldish screen, like I'm trying to describe it, almost like a like a compact or a pet computer, like a greenish, that greenish kind of hue to it.
Mhm.
Tetris, baseball, Super Mario Land, tennis. And you guys have Game Boys?
No.
No. I had
Wait,
one in
which game?
college. It was
Which one?
the original Nintendo Game Boy.
Oh, the Game Boy? No. I did have my NES worked. My NES worked in my parents' bedroom, and then I had the Genesis in my room. So at one point, I was the Switzerland of video game owners, and I had one for each. I had one of each. So
Yeah, it was fun. I mean, it's amazing how it has evolved into the DS. But also, we had the Commodore 64 still around. We had Crazy Cars, Hard Driving, Kings of the Beach, Sim City, one of the first games where you could basically be God and build something. So yeah, lots of great video games in '89. Some of the pop culture events that happened. We had NASA launch the Galileo spacecraft. Its mission was to probe Jupiter's atmosphere and study the largest planet and its moons for 2 years. It was purposely plunged into Jupiter's atmosphere on September 21st, 2003 to take some final measurements and be destroyed. On its way to Jupiter, Galileo spent time studying Earth, Venus, the moon, and 2 asteroids. So Toyota launched its luxury brand, the Lexus. Yeah, very smooth cars. It took forever. I had no idea that it was that Lexus was Toyota.
I didn't realize Lexus was that old.
Yeah.
I didn't realize Lexus started in the 80s. I thought they started in the 2000s. I wasn't paying attention.
Yeah. In Egypt, a 4,400-year-old mummy is found in the Great Pyramids of Giza. Leona Helmsley, the billionaire hotel operator, is convicted on tax fraud charges. The first of 24 satellites of the Global Positioning System is placed in orbit. Voyager 2 passes the planet Neptune and its moon Triton and sends pictures back to Earth. The first microprocessor 486 series is introduced by Intel. Virginia and Florida allowed use of DNA genetic fingerprinting evidence as admissible. And the first release of Microsoft Office. Oof, that seems like very early for Office to come out. Amazing that it's still around to this day, which I still use it quite often. Some notable deaths in 1989. We had Salvador Dali, the great artist. Here's a guy that, Scott, you talk about a lot. John Cassavetes.
Love John Cassavetes.
Mm-hmm.
Love John Cassavetes. Good director, good actor, tough guy. I think he was in The Magnificent Seven. Just stud.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We had Abby Hoffman, the Radical. I forget exactly what he did. He was
part of the Chicago Seven. He was part of the whole 68 Democratic Convention riots and all that bullshit. Yeah, he's part of that.
Here we go. One of the greatest, funniest women of all time, Lucille Ball. Yep. All of us grew up watching I Love Lucy reruns, and it's just amazing. She was just so funny, so talented, kind of ruthless behind the scenes, from what I understand. But the grape squashing, the chocolate conveyor belt. I mean, the
Vita Vita Vegemin.
Vita Vita Vegemin, the wah. I mean, I loved Lucy. Come on, who didn't love Lucy? G, were you a Lucy fan?
Oh yeah, I used to watch all the reruns. I for that time, because of course when we're watching that, it seemed like, oh my gosh, so long ago, and just seeing how funny she was, when TV just basically came out in the early 50s, so just TV was just hitting it big in the United States, and just I think I want to say it's like almost like a model show of a sitcom that was used from years past. Like everybody always refers to I Love Lucy as like the show, one of the first shows on television. It's probably what it wasn't, but it just that's where everybody thinks about when you think of a sitcom or like a comedy TV show.
Mm-hmm. When I worked for Viacom, when I was a freelancer, I was working on Nick at Night, and they were showing I Love Lucy in its original form with all the sponsor stuff. Although it originally was sponsored by a cigarette company, so they digitally turned them into televisions. So you would see like the TV, the cigarette pack open up and turn into a television, all that kind of fun stuff. With these little like animated things, it was kind of cool and amazing at what they did. Johnny, did you love Lucy as well?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. Catch all the reruns there. They would have them on like, twice a day, whatever. And also real groundbreaking how kind of her and her husband like took over the production and everything. So they weren't just they were able to cake off and really profit off the success of the show too. As producers and directors and all that.
Yeah, Scott, anything to add?
My mom cried. Not gonna lie, my mom cried. She loved Lucy. I did too. I mean, it's the first. It's probably in history the first great sitcom, and we talk about our tournaments that we've done at Place to Be Nation on the Facebook page and everything. And if it wasn't hijacked by a bunch of strange Swedes or Finns or New Zealanders, we know what won the sitcom contest. But let's be honest, I Love Lucy gets fucked in stuff like that because it's the standard bearer for sitcoms. End of story. That and Johnny's personal favorite, The Honeymooners. Those are like the standard bearers for sitcoms that would live today. And Lucy was it,
I believe those were the 1-2 seeds in our in that the classic division, whatever we called it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's sad. My mom cried. She loved Lucy. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, we talked about this, I think, too, last time because she had passed away during when we talk about SNL. We cross over years here. We're not perfect. Gilda Radner died of passed away of ovarian cancer. She was not a modern Lucy, but she was one of the funniest women, around when she was performing as well. It was a terrible loss. Jim Backus, who was Mr. Howell on Gilligan's Island, as well as the voice of Mr. Magoo.
Mr. Magoo. Yep.
And this is one.
People also forget people forget he was in Rebel Without a Cause. Jim Backus. Yeah, weird, right?
Yeah, a lot of these guys have these great filmographies. They're just so well known for their signature parts that you think about like somebody like Fred McMurray. Like I got a real education on him. I always thought he was just a dad from My Three Sons, and then I saw Double Indemnity. And I was like, wow, my mind was blown. This one hit me though because as a young kid, I was a huge cartoon fan. I still am a huge animation nerd. Mel Blanc. Everybody hears me, and I like to do voices on all the shows and stuff like that. This guy is Looney Tunes. Yep. Just his ability to you could kind of hear him a little bit, in each voice, but they're so distinct. He voiced every character. Yep. He went from Bugs to Daffy to Tweety to Sylvester to Pepe Le Pew. Yes, Pepe Le Pew, I'm saying. Yosemite Sam, Elmer Fudd, everybody. It was just amazing.
Absolutely.
We had the one. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say that was a tough one. Yeah. He was like the Jim Henson of Warner Brothers, pretty much.
Yeah. I actually have the Speechless cell hanging in my family room where it's a microphone, under a spotlight, and all the Looney Tunes characters are off to the side with their heads bowed. And it has his name and his years on it. Yeah. Yep. I spent a lot more than I made at the Warner Brothers store the one Christmas I worked there. One of the greatest actors of all time, Sir Laurence Olivier. This was this was kind of a scary one. Rebecca Schaefer from My Sister Sam. Killed by a stalker.
Yeah, she was hot.
Yeah, she was
funny.
She was so nice. She would answer all her fan mail and stuff, and unfortunately that's what did her in because she was too nice. And because I saw a documentary recently about the stalkers, and she would always she answered this guy, and this guy thought he was really had a chance or whatever to be friends, and eventually he tracked her down, and he found her, and he just went right up to her door and rang the door, and she answered, and the tragic ending.
Yeah. We also lost Irving Berlin, the great composer. Another, we're in that really. This is where these years we've talked about a little bit for previous episodes. Like a lot of the golden age of Hollywood stars are leaving, are passing away. Betty Davis, one of the greatest actresses of all time, so well known, The number one song a few years ago was based on her. Then we also lost another huge animation talent, Jay Ward. He created Bullwinkle and Rocky. Now I can't remember off the top of my head. The Mountie, Dudley Do-Right. No need to fear, Dudley Do-Right is here. Amongst other great stuff. And then this one, I remember coming home on Christmas night. We had the radio on in the car, and we heard this happen. Billy Martin passed away in a car accident. Growing up, I knew Billy. My dad, grew up watching Billy Martin play, but I knew him as, he was always either the Yankee manager or he was not the Yankee manager. Then he became back and went in the front office. John, do you remember where you were? Were you listening, or you heard this when it happened?
Yeah, I think it was the next day when I saw it in the paper, right on the headline. Just a terrible tragedy. What was it? Was it he driving and his friend tried to fake it, and his buddy tried to say that he was driving, and just so sad that on Christmas Day that he had to go to a bar and get sloshed, instead of being with like family and just chilling and stuff. But that's how he lived. Sad.
Yeah. Gee, you remember being a fellow Yankee fan?
Yeah, I do remember it, and the reason why I do remember it, for another reason, obviously, with being Christmas Day, but I remember we had a really cold snap in Florida at that time, and I remember it was really, really, really cold that day. And of course we didn't have all the winter clothing that you have up here, so I remember everybody, just because I remember having people over and everybody's coming in like, like two sweatshirts on, because nobody has winter jackets or anything living down there. So it's like, but I just remember because Billy Martin, like he was just part of my right, as a Yankee fan, it was part of our childhood. He was, like you said, he was either the Yankee manager or he wasn't, and just all this back and forth on with George, and then doing the Miller Lite commercials. I remember all that in the 80s. So it was sad because I think, wasn't he going to be named manager again for 1990?
I think he was.
I think he was going to be. So, and of course, we all think as Yankee fans like he was going to be the savior, So obviously, it was like I said. That's something I always remember. I actually wrote. We had to do, I think, in my English classes for college. I think I actually wrote a report on this whole thing. I forget what the context was, but I wrote about that whole day of Billy Martin dying. I for some reason it just left an impression on me at that time that I'll never forget. I mean, it was kind of like, even though I kind of remember Thurman Munson passing, but I was so young then. It was kind of like our version of Thurman Munson passing. Billy Martin. Everybody, all Yankee fans love Billy. Even though
one of the greatest arguers of all time.
Oh, no doubt. He was. You know what? He was entertaining, I guess, more than anything.
Yeah. We were driving home. My aunt lives in upstate New York, so about an hour and a half, however it was. We were driving home, and my dad. I mean, he was okay driving, but. I could hear it. He was like, he turned up the radio a little bit because he was like, he couldn't believe what he was hearing. And I was in the back seat, like, oh my God. I mean, I was. Yes.
Did Billy play that on the jukebox in the bar before he left?
All right. Scott, anything to add about Billy Martin?
I remember my dad was, even though I was, obviously being the only Met fan of mine, but my brothers, my dad, they were all a mess. My dad loved Billy because my dad watched Billy as a player, and Billy played like he managed. My brother was, and we talked about it in the 1979 episode because it was exactly 10 years before this. But I mean, I pretty much remember my brother being inconsolable when Thurman Munson died. And like, there was this weird pall that year at Christmas. We had a very nice Christmas, but I remember that night we were all, my mom had gone to bed. So, my brothers and my dad and they just had the news on, and Channel 11. I don't know if you guys remember, Channel 11 did a whole thing on it. Jerry Gerard did a whole thing on it, and Channel 9, and obviously we didn't have MSG or Yes back then. I'm sure Yes would have done wall to wall. Yeah, it was one of the most devastating losses for New York. I mean, he was the guy, like he was the manager. We'll talk more about it when we get to sports, but he was the Yankees. I mean, he's just a guy that you'll always remember as being the manager of the Yankees. You don't remember Bob Lemon or Ralph Houck or any of those guys. You remember Billy, win or lose,
Yeah. Yep. All right. On the other side, though, of the coin, some notable births. This now we're starting to really feel old when we start hearing these people. Elizabeth Olsen, Dakota Johnson, Brie Larson, Daniel. It's hard to think. Like Captain Marvel and Harry Potter are the same age. They were born the same year. Daniel Radcliffe was born in '89. Nina Dobrev, Hayden Panettiere, Taron Egerton, Christopher McLovin, Christopher Mix-Plus. Also Taylor Swift. Avicii, Joe Jonas, Jason Derulo. In the world of sports, Rob Gronkowski, James Harden, Blake Griffin, J.J. Watt, Cam Newton, Rory McIlroy. And in wrestling, we have Bianca Belair, Nick Jackson, Mia Yim, Adam Cole, Bailey, Emma, Billy Kay, Cedric Alexander, and Nikki Cross, all born 1989. And with that, we're going to move on to sports with the Podfather. Scott, take it away.
Thank you, Andy. And that was a tough year for deaths, though, I have to say. That was one of the more star-studded death lists I think we've had on the show so far.
Yeah.
A lot of rough ones in 1989. All right, speaking of baseball, why don't we jump right in and do that first? The Hall of Fame class that year, guys, arguably one of the greatest catchers of all time, Johnny Bench, and probably one of the top 5 or 6 players of all time that never won a championship. Of course, he had to play for the Red Sox. Carl Yastrzemski, Yaz, one of the best outfielders in Red Sox history, and of course he was in the Hall of Fame as well. The Veterans Committee picked Al Barlick and Red Schoendienst, the legendary Cardinals infielder. Your individual winners that year: Robin Yount won the league MVP. Wow, what a year he had in '89. Kevin Mitchell, 3 years after not wearing a cup when getting a hit in the 10th inning of the World Series, as Johnny and I know, smacked 47 home runs, I think, that year for the Giants. So he won the MVP. Brett Saberhagen.
Was that the same year he caught the ball barehanded?
Caught the ball barehanded. Yeah, I think it was.
That was
I think it was.
play. Oh my God.
Yeah, he caught the ball barehanded down the right. I think it was against the Cardinals, actually, at Busch. I think he caught the ball barehanded down the left field line. Brett Saberhagen won his second Cy Young for the Royals. And Mark Davis, who would eventually fade into oblivion, won the NL Cy Young as closer for the San Diego Padres. Greg Olson, speaking of closers, won the AL Rookie of the Year. And Jerome Walton, quite a couple of decent years after this, won Rookie of the Year for the National League, playing for the Cubs. Your division winners that year: Toronto won the AL East. Oakland won their second straight AL West title. The Giants, led by Kevin Mitchell and Will Clark, Will the Thrill, won the NL West, and the Cubs outlasted the Mets in a pretty good pennant race in '89 to win the NL East. Oakland beat Toronto in the ALCS. Giants beat the Cubs in the NLCS. And then one of the most memorable World Series of all time took place, the 1989 World Series, the Battle by the Bay, the Bay Bridge Series between the Oakland A's and the San Francisco Giants. The A's swept the first 2 games at Alameda. And then on Tuesday night, I remember it was a Tuesday, October 17th, just before Game 3 at Candlestick Park, Tim McCarver was describing a highlight of something in Game 2. And then all of a sudden, the screen started to wiggle, and we got, porn squiggly lines on the screen. And all of a sudden, you hear Al Michael say, "We're having an earthquake." And sure enough, the 6.9 earthquake, Loma Prieta, that's officially called the Loma Prieta earthquake, took place. And the World Series was postponed for 10 days. They thought Candlestick was obviously unplayable, and obviously, baseball was of no consequence on that day. 10 days later, the World Series resumed. Giants won the next 2 games. The A's won the next 2 games. swept the Giants to win the world title. Dr. G, do you remember that Tuesday? I was sitting in my kitchen doing homework. I know nobody believes that. But I was sitting in my kitchen doing homework, and my dad goes, "Holy shit, look at this." And I look in, and he says, and all of a sudden you hear Al Michaels. So, and just everything was freaking out. Do you remember that?
It's funny because I was not watching it either. My father called me to watch it. I think I was like getting something out of the fridge or whatever, and he's like, "Come on, you got to come back and watch this." And he's like, I think something happened. There's like an earthquake or something. And I just remember sitting there, wow, what the heck is going on here? And who knew what devastation that was that happened that day? It was like all of a sudden it was like the whole city was in really bad shape.
Yep.
It's amazing they actually played the games there if you think about it, just 10 days later.
Crazy. Johnny, what do you remember?
Yeah, but poor Al Michaels. I had to hold it together because he must have been terrified, but also he just managed to keep it professional enough to get through the broadcast and explain what was going on as best as he could, with what information he was getting. But you could tell a lot of guys, it was a real scary situation.
Well, think about it. If you're sitting in the press box and the press box is wobbling, yeah, I'd be shitting my fucking pants. I don't care if I'm on TV.
Yeah.
Do you remember, Andy?
Yep. Oh yeah. Well, I think we were watching it, me and my dad, and all of a sudden the screen goes haywire. You see that it's like broken up, and it's like almost like you're watching a scrambled channel for a moment because you don't know what the hell's going on there. Mm-hmm. All of a sudden, instead of sportscasting, they got to become reporters and talk about the news about this actual event that's happening. Yeah, it was. I'm sure a lot of devastation happened all around the area. I mean, it was amazing that the one time we have a Bay Area series, this happens.
Yeah,
it's kind of kismet.
It is kismet. I agree. Yeah, I agree. So, in any event, the World Series ended on the 27th, the latest it ever did. 28th, actually, one day after our World Series, Johnny, ended 3 years earlier. Of course, we went the full 7. They only went 4, but 10 days to make sure the ballpark was fine. So there you go. So the Oakland A's, after the devastating loss to the Dodgers the year before, take on another team in their own state of California. Isn't that weird? I don't think, has that ever happened? 2 straight years where both teams are from the same state. That's kind of odd. But anyway, the Oakland A's, world champions, to conclude the 1980s. So you had the Dodgers, who were the only, talk about parity, the Dodgers were the only team in the decade of the 80s to win the World Series twice, 1981 and 1988. Everything else, you had different teams every year. And you know what's funny? Who had the best winning percentage in Major League Baseball in the decade of the 80s? The best winning percentage in both leagues, the New York Yankees. And the last 8 years of the decade, they did not make the playoffs. Isn't that crazy? Because you guys finished second literally every year to somebody else. Isn't that nuts? You finished second to the Orioles in 83, the Tigers in 84, the Blue Jays in 85, the Red Sox in 86. Literally, you won 90-something games like 6 straight years. But a different team finished better than you every year. And it's crazy to think about. It is crazy to think about. So, anyway, congrats to the A's for winning the World Series. Some notes from the 89 season. The first Saturday night game at Wrigley Field was on April 29th. The Padres and Cubs chose not to show up, combined for 11 errors, and the Padres win 5-4. Michael Jack Schmidt, after winning his 500 home runs year before, announced his retirement, effective immediately. Nonetheless, he'll be voted to start the All-Star game and showed up in uniform. Michael Jack Schmidt. On June 5th, just 8 days after leaving Exhibition Stadium, the Blue Jays opened the Sky Dome, which is now called the Rogers Center, the first stadium in Major League history with a retractable roof. As he did in the last game at Exhibition Stadium, George Bell hit a home run. On August 10th, a little over 10 months removed from surgery to remove a tumor in his arm, Dave Dravecky of the Giants starts and beats the Reds 4-3. But then just 5 days later, in one of the grossest injuries we'd ever see, Dravecky starts against the Expos, and in the 6th inning, as he's throwing a pitch, the humerus bone in his arm snapped. Ow! I remember watching that on SportsCenter, and the humerus bone, by the way, is your upper arm, which is practically impossible to break. It's like your femur. And he threw the pitch, and that bone snapped because of the weakness from the cancer and the chemo and that kind of thing. Oof. Oh, how tough could that have been? He broke the arm again after celebrating the Giants winning the title. He would later discover the cancer had returned. 18 days later, Dave Dravecky would retire. But the biggest moment that occurred in 1989 in baseball that would forever still reverberate to this day, Bart Giamatti, Commissioner of Baseball, announced in a press conference that Pete Rose was banned for baseball for life in the wake of evidence that he gambled not only on gay baseball, but on the Reds while he was managing them. At this point, a lot of people thought, sometime down the line, I'm sure baseball will probably just reverse it or whatever. Well, a week later, I think that decision went to the grave along with Bart Giamatti, who unexpectedly passed away from a heart attack. 13 days later, Fay Vincent became the new commissioner, and from that point on, I don't think Pete Rose was ever going to get a shot to go into the Hall of Fame. Andy, what were your thoughts on that, about this whole saga with Pete Rose? And, I mean, my opinion always was, there's guys that are in the Hall of Fame that have done a hell of a lot worse. And I don't know if it was an example that had to be made on the integrity of the game or what have you, but what were your thoughts on this?
I mean, I think it's BS. I think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I mean, Charlie Hustle, all-time hit leader. It's not a human being Hall of Fame. Yeah, they say Ty Cobb was a racist and this one was that, but he tarnished the game. I'm like, all right, well, he was, I don't know, he was managing at the time. I'm not saying that what he did was right, wasn't wrong, but I think at this point now he served. It's time. He should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm sorry, he's the all-time hits leader, no questions. That's it. Giamatti, I think, was just a little too rash. I mean, had he not, passed away suddenly, I don't think he would have reversed it. But yeah, I think Pete Rose deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. What
do you think, Johnny?
Well, it's just one of those old traditions that there's no gambling. It's it might be outdated, but it's just one of those things that they're stubborn on, and they're going to stick with it. That anyone who gambles is is banned. So it's just one of those old traditions that the things, a lot of things that they're going through with the DH and stuff like that is just old-fashioned traditions, and they're sticking with them.
Mm-hmm. What do you think, G?
Well, I don't think anybody wants to be the commissioner that overturns some Bart Giamatti's decision. Because he died suddenly, and I think people feel funny about overturning it. But what he did was, definitely was not great for the integrity of the game and everything. But again, that was when he was a manager. So you gotta separate it. And I agree with Andy. This is not, the good person Hall of Fame. And then, the guy was the all-time hits leader. Now, has he helped his image throughout the years? No, he's not a very pleasant guy. He's just not a good guy in general. But does he deserve to be there for the way he played the game? No doubt. But I don't think you're going to get anybody that's going to reverse it.
That's the thing. Yeah, that's the thing for me, G, that you made a good point there, is that I think if he had a little bit of a better PR image over the last 25 years or whatever, maybe, but he's just such an asshole.
Well, he kept denying
what it is.
Yeah, doesn't he set up a table outside the Hall of Fame every year?
Yeah, he does. He down at one of the stores across the street. He puts up fucking autographs. He's such an asshole.
Well, he kept denying it for all those years too, and then finally admitted to it. I don't know. He just never did himself. He
never did himself any favors.
No, he was kind of his own worst enemy.
He really was.
Still is.
Yeah,
I mean, he's 80 years old now. Do you believe it?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Crazy. But yeah, I mean, Ty Cobb, forget the racist part. He murdered somebody, and he's in the Hall of Fame. Fergie Jenkins was dealing drugs in Mexico, and he's in the fucking Hall of Fame. Look, if any Hall of Fame only bled in the good guys, the WWE Hall of Fame would have Ricky Steamboat, and that's it. So, I mean, so shit happens. But anyway, so there's baseball in 1989. Let's move to college basketball, the 88-89 NCAA tournament. One of the greatest games ever played in overtime. And again, gotta love the Big East Johnny. Pirates of Seton Hall gave Michigan a run. Michigan beat Seton Hall in overtime, 80-79. Illinois and Duke were also in that Final Four. If you remember the story behind Michigan, Bill Frieder was their head coach. And he was their head coach throughout the season. But he announced after the Big Ten tournament that he was going to take the job at Arizona State the following season. But he said he would still coach Michigan in the tournament. Well, Bo Schembechler told him to go fucking pound sand. And he brought in his assistant, Steve Fisher, to replace him. And Steve Fisher, miracle run. Glenn Rice scored the most points in a 6-game tournament in history. Ramil Robinson hit 2 free throws in OT and beat Seton Hall in overtime. Johnny, you remember that Seton Hall team? Ramon Ramos and Andrew Gaze, Johnny Moore.
Yes, and you know what I remember most? A young upstart at CBS Sports, Brent Musburger's assistant, who became a studio analyst, picked Seton Hall to go to the Final Four at the very beginning of the tournament. As a big underdog, and that analyst was named Mike Fat Francesa, and he hasn't gotten one right since 1989. That was the last thing he ever got right in his fucking career, and he turned that the good prediction into a lifetime and a career of running his fucking mouth and making a lot of money and annoying New York sports fans.
Speaking of guys whose image is that he's an asshole. Oh wait, that's the truth. Sorry. Anyway, so congrats to Michigan. They won the tournament in '89. Let's envelop this into the NBA. The 1989 NBA draft was that spring. The number 1 overall pick, Never Nervous Purvis Ellison from Louisville, was drafted by the Kings after he won the national championship as a freshman. He kind of coasted the final 3 years and didn't do much in the NBA. Danny Ferry was drafted second by Duke. Sean Elliott, third from Arizona, went to the Spurs. Glenn Rice, speaking of, was fourth. He went to Miami. Other noted picks. Mookie Blaylock was drafted 12th by the Nets. Tim Hardaway was drafted 14th by Golden State. Sean Kemp 17th by the Sonics. Vlade Divac, who'd be a Laker for 7 years, drafted 26th. And Dino Raja drafted 40th by the Celtics. The NBA Hall of Fame class that year, speaking of the Celtics, Casey Jones, William Gates, and Lenny Wilkens, who, of course, a PC alum who was the head coach of the 79 world champion Sonics, and then would go on to coach Cleveland and I think the Hawks after that. The slam dunk contest was won by Kenny Skywalker, Johnny, your boys, and Dale Ellis won the 3-point contest.
Nobody wins slam dunk champions like the New York Knicks. Regular champions, not so much.
Yeah, it's the only champions they win.
Meaningless fucking slam dunk champions. Nate Robinson, Kenny Walker. Yeah, nobody does it like the Knicks.
Of course, Magic Johnson won the MVP. Mitch Richmond won Rookie of the Year. And in the NBA Finals, after a gut-wrenching Game 7 loss the year before at the Forum, the Detroit Pistons, those fucking scumbags, put it all together. Oh, wait, did I say that? And won the NBA title in a 4-game sweep.
4-game sweep. Embarrassed the once mighty Lakers.
Once mighty.
Embarrassed them.
Byron Scott did not play in the playoffs.
Wow. Injuries. Yeah.
Then Kenny Skywalker could have got some dunks for us in the finals. But who knows? Joe Dumars is the only Piston with worth his grain and salt. But anyway, and he won the MVP of the finals too. So anyway, so there's your NBA for 1989. Pistons won the world title. The draft that year in the NFL. Let's move on to the NFL. The 1989 NFL draft. The number 1 overall pick, quarterback out of UCLA.
Scumbag Troy Aikman.
I left that hole wide open for Johnny right there. Big Lips himself, Troy Aikman, of course, went to the Dallas Cowboys because, guys, well, I'll talk about that in a minute. Barry Sanders picked third by the Detroit Lions. Derek Thomas picked fourth by Kansas City. Deion Sanders fifth to the Falcons. Some other great picks as well. Your Hall of Fame class that year, very Steeler heavy. Mel Blount, Terry Bradshaw, Art Shell, and Willie Wood.
Good. They deserve it for all those times they beat the Cowboys in the Super Bowl. They should induct the whole Steelers teams, all those teams that beat those Cowboys in the Super Bowl.
I don't see Scott Bruner in the Hall of Fame. Super Bowl 23 that year down in Miami. The 49ers and the Bengals in a rematch of Super Bowl 16 in Pontiac. And it was Jerry Rice won the MVP. And on that last great drive, it was Montana to John Taylor. Niners win 20-16. And Dr. G, do you remember who sang the national anthem? Super Bowl 23.
I don't know. I don't remember. Could you tell me?
I will tell you. It was a fine hirsute piano player from Hickville, Wisconsin. We'll talk more about him in the music segment. Anyway. So anyway. But all the team in 1989 season itself, Buffalo, Cleveland, Denver won the divisions. Houston and Pittsburgh the wild cards. Giants, Minnesota, and San Francisco won the divisions. Philadelphia and the Rams won the wild card. Joe Montana won your league MVP, and Lindy Infante was the head coach of the Packers, won the Coach of the Year. But a big thing happened in 1989 on Dr. G's birthday, February 25th, 1989. Clint Murchison sold his beloved Dallas Cowboy franchise to an oil man from Arkansas by the name of Jerry Jones. And on a day that took me 4 years to forgive him, the day he bought the team, he fired Tom Landry. And it took me a long time to get over that, at least 3 years. But
until they won.
Well, that's what else is that? Tom who?
The wagon jumps off, jumps on. You'll notice this. When the Lakers start playing bad, you won't even talk about him.
They call him Flipper.
Yeah, you notice how fast we went through the basketball section this year. Come on.
He went Flipper.
I can't wait to get to the 90s, the year that friggin' Jerry makes the worst mistake of his life, fires Jimmy Johnson, and never wins another Super Bowl again in his fucking life.
Yeah, that is true. Yeah, the very
Barry Switzer
with his guys. That was Jerry's guys. Anyway,
after Barry Switzer. Yeah.
Let's go to the NCAA. Of course, Notre Dame was the defending national champions. Michigan was your preseason number one. Notre Dame beat Colorado in the Orange Bowl, but Miami would win the national championship. They beat Alabama in the Sugar Bowl.
Good. The convicts over the Catholics.
Yeah, the convicts got back in the Catholic. And then, surprised that wasn't vacated. And then Andre, speaking of quarterbacks that vanished off the face of the earth, Andre Ware from Houston won the Heisman Trophy.
You liked the convict coach when he won you some I don't know. Won you Super Bowl, didn't you?
I don't know what you're talking about. Let's talk about Billy Martin some more. No. Let's talk about hockey in 1987-88. The Calgary Flames in the 88-89 season. Lanny McDonald with that luscious mustache. The Flames beat the Montreal Canadiens in 6 games to win the Stanley Cup title. Al McInnes was the finals MVP. Gretzky won the league MVP. But in one of the nastiest injuries, this was the year of gross injuries. You had Dave Draveki's arm snap. And I remember watching this on SportsCenter, and I look, I'm a horror movie fan, so I can handle gore. If you guys don't remember when Clint Malarchuk's jugular vein was sliced by a skate, and all of it, and you could tell every time his heart beat, blood just fell on the ice. It was nasty, and amazingly, he lived. He dealt with a lot of mental problems after that. But Johnny, do you remember that? It was, I don't remember who. I think they were playing Winnipeg. I got to look that up. But that was nasty. I mean, you could see every time his heart beat, blood spurting out of his. That is rough. That is rough. NHL Hall of Fame. Herbie Lewis, Darryl Sittler, great player for the for the Maple Leafs, and Vladislav Tretiak, who of course was the goalie for the Soviet hockey team during the good years. Stupidly benched by his coach after one period in the semifinals in 1980 against the U.S. I'm sure that, what's his name? I forgot the coach's name. I'm sure he regrets that to this day. In golf that year, Nick Faldo won his first of back-to-back Masters. 4 separate winners in the majors, by the way. Tom Kite was the money leader. 4 straight, actually 2 two-time winner in men's tennis. Boris Becker won Wimbledon and the U.S. Open. Steffi Graf kept dominating. She did not win her second straight Grand Slam, though. She won all 3. She won 3 of 4. Arantxa Sanchez Vicario won the French Open. Steffi Graf won the rest. In auto racing, Emerson Fittipaldi won the Indy 500. Darrell Waltrip won Daytona. Rusty Wallace won the NASCAR Points Championship. And that is it for sports in the final decade of the 80s. Let's now go to the tiny screen, 1989 in television. To you, Andy Atherton.
All right. Well, you guys will notice a definite change. A lot of great series are ending, and some, a lot of landmark series are beginning that we'll talk about. But first, let's talk about the top rated programs of the 1989-90 television season. No change at the top. Cosby's number 1, Roseanne's number 2. Then we had Cheers, A Different World, America's Funniest Home Videos, number 5. Then we had The Golden Girls, 60 Minutes, which always did tremendous, thanks to the football lead-in. The Wonder Years, Empty Nest. You had Monday Night Football, Unsolved Mysteries, Who's the Boss, Murray She Wrote, Chicken Soup, a one-year show, finished 14th in the ratings. Grand, I don't even remember what that show was. I'm sure it was a thing on TV, guys, will have covered that kind of stuff. Then you had LA Law, Dear John, Coach, and In the Heat of the Night, and Matlock. And then rounding out your top 30 is Growing Pains, Full House, Designing Women, the CBS Sunday Night Movie, Hunter, Head of the Class, Murphy Brown, The Simpsons, Night Court, and Doogie Howser, MD. Some of the shows that we said goodbye to in 1989, Dirty Dancing, the spinoff from the movie, Simon and Simon. That was a fun show for a while. Webster, I believe didn't he end up on Star Trek or something in the finale? I think I was reading that. I think LeVar Burton guest starred, and he actually played Geordie LaForge in the episode. I'm not sure. I have to double check that one. Murphy's Law, Sale of the Century, one of my favorite game shows of all time. She's the Sheriff. That was Suzanne Summers' follow-up from Three's Company. It's a Living, Duet, which is one of the early Fox shows. Dynasty, which I believe they left the main characters in mortal peril as the series ended. Family Ties, we say goodbye to the Keatons. Moonlighting, The Gong Show, which does return later on under reimagined. Small Wonder, that kind of creepy syndicated show with the girl robot. Miami Vice, Kate and Alley, Highway to Heaven, The Equalizer, American Bandstand, and The Smurfs all say goodbye. But in 1989, here's what came along. And this show revolutionized late night, guys. The Arsenio Hall Show. It was different. It was not, an old white guy hosting a late night talk show. You had Arsenio. He was young. He was hip. He was popular. He got different kinds of guests to come on the show. Johnny, did you watch Arsenio when he first came out?
Yes, of course. Groundbreaking. Had Clinton on there playing the sax before the election. That was one of the big things, all different types. I think he had Farrakhan on there, a lot of controversial guests. Of course, for us wrestling fans, he had Hulk on there with the legendary interview, whether it was good or bad during the steroid stuff, and he had a lot of wrestlers on too, but. Also an infamous Howard Stern appearance where they kind of went at it, and that led to some. They had a little beef for a while, which they reconciled years later. But yeah, definitely musical performances. He had it all for a few years. It was a very hot show.
And from what I can understand too, his show started at 11, as opposed to.
Yes.
The Tonight Show and late night, not late night, the CBS, whatever CBS was called at the time, started at 11:30. Dr. G, did you watch Arsenio back in the day?
Oh yeah, and that's what was cool, was that it did come on at 11 o'clock. So come on, when you were younger, did you really want to watch the news anyway?
Well,
and,
Fox. Yeah, and Fox at the time, they were doing news at 10. That's why.
10, right. The local
news was on at 10. So
yeah,
exactly. So
Well, I mean, not to get all nerdy from like where you learn in college, but they followed the primetime access rule because if they programmed original programming past 10 o'clock, they wouldn't be able to put shows like that or the off-net any kind of sitcoms or whatever from 7 to 8 or 11 to midnight. So if they only programmed 2 hours of primetime a night, they fell under the hours and so they had local news. Same thing with channel WPIX eventually, WOR, UPN, whatever they were called. Yeah, they all follow that. That's why you don't see any 10 o'clock shows on Fox, so they could so their affiliates can don't have to follow the rule. But Scott, what were you going to say about Arsenio?
Well, that's the thing. Arsenio was hip, so his audience was not staying up that late. So it worked out for him that Fox did that. They wanted a show to compete with Johnny. They weren't gonna beat Johnny in the ratings, as Johnny was still on fire in '89, and Dave was on fire. They weren't gonna put him on during Carson at 11:30, and they certainly weren't gonna put him on during Letterman at 12:30, because I was still watching Dave, because I loved Dave when he was on 12:30 on NBC. He became a different host when he moved to CBS, but that's another story. But I loved Arsenio. Like Johnny said, he had all the wrestlers on. He had Savage on. He had Ultimate Warrior on. He had Hogan on. He had and he had like a lot of sports stars on. So he had different art. Like, he had younger, hipper guests, and he also had a lot of athletes that otherwise, like Johnny would have like golfers and tennis players and that kind of stuff. Whereas Arsenio would get Barry Sanders after he got drafted, and Troy Aikman and baseball players and Magic, and he would have and it was and Michael, athletes that we as kids related to. So it was perfect. It was a perfect show for that time to kind of counter the older demographic for Johnny and Letterman.
Yeah. It was all. Well, it wasn't about ratings. It was about the different advertisers they want to attract. That demographic that is so coveted by these shows. Also, USA Up All Night started. That was a programming block. I think it was Rhonda Shear was hosting at the time. It was like these B movies. I watched a lot of crappy movies like Night of the Creeps and Sorority Girls at the Slime Bowl Bowl-orama. All kinds of crappy movies like that. Scott, I know you watched USA Up All Night.
I absolutely
right?
did. USA Up All Night. It should be called Teen Movies for Rhonda's tits, but oh yeah, no, I watched Up All Night. Oh yeah, there was all the all-nighter with what's her face, Susanna Hoffs, and all the schlocky crap horror movies, and Smokey and the Bandit Part 3, and Cannonball Run 2, and every shit sequel of a great movie was on Rhonda Shear Up All Night. And yeah, the Hot Dog the movie and Meatballs 2. Like every garbage sequel of a great movie was on USA Up All Night. So that was
I wouldn't necessarily call Cannonball Run 2 garbage. It's nowhere near Cannonball Run, but it's still a very funny movie, actually.
No, it's not. It really is.
I think it is. I'll argue on that.
It's crap. Frank Sinatra took a free paycheck to be in that movie. For God's sakes,
He doesn't even appear with anybody else. You just watch the cutaways. They're so all great. Cutaways with him.
That's such Sinatra. It's so great.
Dr. G, did you watch USA Up All Night?
I didn't. I have to be honest, I didn't. I mean, I knew about it and everything, but I didn't really watch it.
Johnny?
Not really.
Not your cup of tea. All right. So also Inside Edition started that year. The follow-up to America's Dad, the great Tom Bosley and Father Dowling Mystery started that year. Nightingale's Coach with Craig D. Nelson. Very, very funny show.
Oh,
I'm watching it right now, actually.
Yeah. What a show. Damn, what a show.
Dauber.
It's great.
Luther and
oh yeah, it was very fun.
Great show.
Kind of. I don't know. Do you guys like it when he went to the pros and the expansion team in Orlando, or was it? What did it jump the shark?
Yeah, I mean, once Minnesota State won the national championship, what was he gonna do? You know.
You know that's funny about that. We were for my sister got married in 1995, so we afterwards all the family went to Universal, Disney, all to that area. And we went to Universal. All of a sudden, we see all these people walking around with like pennants that say Orlando Breakers, and we're like, "What the hell is all this all about? What's Orlando Breaker?" Like I didn't know what the heck was going on. All of a sudden, people come to they go, "You gotta here, take one of these. You gotta pretend to be in the crowd. This is for a TV show." And we're like, "Well, what TV show is it?" Do you ever watch the TV show Coach? I said, "Yeah." He goes, "Yeah." And then all of a sudden, you see they do like a car parade. They show it in the show, like when he's named coach, and they had you like basically waving these pennants to be like part of the crowd. And I just always remember that because I was like, what the hell is all this Orlando Breakers? I thought it was like, is there a new team that I didn't know about? So yeah,
did you get to keep the pennant?
I wish I did.
Oh.
I wish I don't even know where it is because I moved so many times, but I wish I kept that. But yeah, it was just we happened to just be there. We had no clue that it was going on, and I just always remember that. And then, but I do agree with you. Once he went to the pros, it just wasn't the same. Didn't have that same chemistry.
Yeah. All right, Johnny, did you watch Coach when it was on?
Not really.
No?
I caught a few. I caught a few episodes. It was pretty good. I liked Jerry Van Dyke. He was very funny. Luther Van Dam was
good.
Yep.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Also, we had Anything But Love. That was Richard Lewis, Jamie Lee Curtis show. Cops started. It's still on in some iteration, I believe, still to this day. Scott, I think you're a big Quantum Leap guy. Quantum Leap started that year.
Yes, absolutely. Love it.
You and Tech.
Me and Tech.
Scott Bakula, yeah. Excellent.
Yep. Harry Dean Stanton.
Yeah. Rescue 911. Tales from the Crypt on HBO. I used to watch this show. It was
Love
a little scary. Love the Crypt Keeper. Very puntastic sometimes, but very fun show. Here's a little show that went on to things. Seinfeld premieres 1999. Yeah, this guy Jerry Seinfeld. It was a show about nothing apparently.
Yeah, they're a bunch of assholes.
Johnny, were you watching Seinfeld from the beginning?
The Seinfeld Chronicles? No, not from the beginning. I caught it a few years later, and then I caught up to all the watched all the episodes, but I didn't get into it till about season 4 or 5.
G, what about you? You Seinfeld?
I was never really a big Seinfeld fan. I've seen some of the episodes and watch them. I didn't catch on with me like it did with others. And the funny thing is, when I was in radio, and around the time of the show was going on off the air, I actually had to do a show on it, and so I had to read up a lot on it and just try to watch some episodes just to kind of feel like I knew what I was talking about. Anyway, but yeah, it was just a show. I don't know why, because I love sitcoms, but for some reason that show just never really clicked with me.
Yeah, Scott.
Here and there. I think eventually one day I'll probably power watch it, but there's certain episodes I like, Master of My Domain and
the contest, yes.
The contest, Soup
Nazi, yeah.
No soup for you. When Jerry steals the pumpernickel bread and beats the shit out of the old lady in the street.
The Marlboro, yeah.
Yeah. The one where he couldn't remember the girl's name, but it was named after. She yells Dolores out the window. I'm Keith Hernandez. Yeah, that one. There's a few select episodes, but I was not a consistent watcher. I'll be honest. I liked another show that we'll talk about in later episodes, by the creator of Seinfeld, when his show reaches cable. But I know we'll talk about that down the line.
One magic loogie.
Yes, one magic loogie. I'm Keith Hernandez. I love it. Let's get episode.
Yeah. Hey Dude premiered. Also, Goodbye, Good Morning, Miss Bliss. Hello, Saved by the Bell starts its run Saturday mornings on NBC.
Yep.
American Gladiators.
Good show.
Which I believe we're getting. Is it a 30 for 30 or a documentary is coming out soon?
Yeah,
that'd be
30
great.
for 30. Yeah,
That'd be awesome.
30 for 30.
Yeah,
Nice.
so yeah, it was fun. It was just ridiculous. It was it was amazing. It was a nice alternative one because if you were too old to really watch some of these cartoons, American Gladiators was the perfect thing to watch. I mean, I don't know if Rock and Roller Games was on around that time too, but just these almost like wrestling-esque or sports-esque shows. Alienation also premiered based on I believe it was based on the film, the famous Teddy Z.
Yeah, it was.
Major
Sorry,
Dad.
sorry. Alienation was based. I just want to clarify. It was based on the movie. It was.
Yeah. Then we had a Major Dad, which had a nice long run. Doogie Howser, MD, was the young Neil Patrick, a show that did not do well on broadcast and then went on to become the biggest show in the world in syndication, which is Baywatch. Now, I gotta be honest, I've never seen more. I've seen some Baywatch episodes, only a handful maybe. I don't know. Maybe it just was never on. I was never like watching TV when it was on. I don't know. But I don't know. Any of you guys Baywatch fans, or it was just like, yeah, it's there.
Yeah. Like you, I watched a few episodes here and there, but
yeah,
didn't do anything for me.
I'm probably the only person whose favorite Baywatch girl was Yasmin Bleeth. And he's like, well, there was a thud.
like on Friends, I think I think Chandler loved Yasmin. I think he might have been dating her in real life at the time. That's why. But they named I think they named the chick Yasmin. I think after her. Oh, Yasmin Bleeth was good, but then she became a hot mess.
Yeah, she really did become a hot mess later on. Yeah, I agree.
And then a show amazingly still on today, The Simpsons debut. They had started on the Tracy Ullman show, and now they have their own half-hour show, and to this day is still going strong.
Yep. It's making a run with Raw for longest show. They had a 3 year, 4 year head start, but they're going neck and neck. But I can't believe the show's still on. I can't, and I'm glad that it's on Disney Plus now because one day I will watch from the beginning.
Oh my God, that is quite the undertaking.
I agree. Dr. G's favorite Simpsons episode is the one where what's his face? The old guy. I keep forgetting it. What's his name? The guy that owns the guy that owns the company. What's his name?
Mr. Smithers.
Mr. Smithers made Don Mattingly shave his whole head. Mr. Burns made Don Mattingly shave his whole head. That's Dr. G's episode.
I remember that.
Giant. What was it? Fucking giant head Ken Griffey and. Steve Sachs is saving kids out of a burning house, I think, or that was somebody else.
The all-time one is when what's his name? I forget. He bet on the Washington Generals to beat the Globetrotters.
Yeah.
And he was getting mad. He's like, "Look at him! It's in the bucket! Don't fall for the bucket!" And
oh God, amazing! What a show!
I mean, you know what? I think when they, what led to the longevity. They shifted the focus from Bart to Homer. I think that's really what added to it. Because, you can only, have an annoying, 10-year-old or however old Bart Simpson is supposed to be for so long. Homer is just the gift that keeps on giving, I think.
I agree.
And speaking of cartoons, Saturday morning cartoons we're kind of like the same, not really much change here, but we had the Flintstone Kids. A lot of times they would just take like a popular show and just either make them young, like a pup called Scooby-Doo was also popular at the time. Bugs and Tweety still had a presence. Winnie the Pooh, Slimer the Real Ghostbusters, Muppet Babies, Pee-wee's Playhouse, Garfield, Gummy Bears, Smurfs, Alvin and Chipmunks, Dink the Little Dinosaur. California Raisins even had a show. So Karate Kid, Camp Candy, which I think was a John Candy vehicle, where he voiced a lot of the characters on it. So... But on the weekday afternoon cartoons, we had Ninja Turtles hanging on and some of the other shows. But a programming block would start that I would watch in college quite often because I would, come home from class and we didn't have like great cable. The Disney afternoon. It started with DuckTales and Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, two very, very funny shows that, and then they started adding more and more as went on, and we'll mention those later on later episodes. But on one of our favorite shows, Saturday Night Live, enters season 15. Like no real changes in the cast. I mean, Mike Myers gets promoted from a feature player to a full-fledged cast member. So Dana Carvey, Nora Dunn, Phil Hartman, Jen Hooks, Victoria Jackson, John Lovitz, Dennis Miller, Kevin Nealon, Mike Myers. It was Nora Dunn and John Lovitz's final season. You have A. Whitney Brown and Al Franken as your featured players. But at the start of the season, on September 24th, 1989, a special celebrating the 15th anniversary of the show aired. I actually taped this, and I had it on videotape for a long time because it's an amazing clip show. Long list of cast members and guest hosts, special people honored the show's anniversary. Chevy Chase and Garrett Morris appear in the cold open. Chevy Chase does the fall. He actually dumps a bowl of popcorn on Donald Trump in the open. Whether there's a debate between Jane Curtin and Lorne Michaels whether or not Chevy's too old to do the fall. Tom Hanks performed the opening monologue. Prince and Paul Simon performed. There were vintage musical clips including performances from David Bowie and Elvis Costello. John Belushi and Gilda Radner received tributes. Among the guest hosts that night were Robin Williams, Mary Tyler Moore, and O.J. Simpson. And it was the final appearance of Buck Henry on SNL. He had been the most frequent host during the 70s. And, so that year we had a great string of hosts and musical guests. We had Bruce Willis and Neil Young, Rick Moranis and Ricky Lee Jones. On that episode, Mr. Subliminal debuts on Weekend Update. Then we had Kathleen Turner and Billy Joel. Do you guys remember what songs Billy Joel performed?
Did he do We Didn't Start the Fire? No, We Didn't Start.
Right?
Yeah. Did he do? I think it was We Didn't Start the Fire and Go to Extremes.
No, I think it was. I know it was Downeaster Alexa was one of them.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting. That's a weird pick.
Because that wasn't a hit really at that.
Yeah. That's great.
Let's see. I will call that up right now just to.
On a side note, while you're looking that up, Andy, I want to mention something about that 15th anniversary. It was a big deal when they played those vintage performances by Elvis Costello and Bowie because Lorne Michaels banned both of them for a long time because they played songs that he didn't like. He didn't want to play Radio, Elvis Costello, but he played it and he got banned. And then Bowie, David fucking Bowie, got banned on SNL because he twisted Lorne Michaels' panties over some song he played or some shit. I don't know. But Lorne Michaels is very OCD about the music performances. But anyway,
I think Costello's ban ended the year before, which is I think why he was there. And they did play the clip of him saying he doesn't want to play the song on that show too.
Huh. Interesting.
So this aired on October 21st, 1989. Kathleen Turner was the host. Billy Joel performs We Didn't Start the Fire and the Downeaster Alexa. He also appeared in Da Squaren aus Berliner sketch where he played the Glockenspiel. So.
Oh, I remember that. That's right. I do remember that. Oh, that's funny. On a side note, by the way, and I'll say this now, Andy, so I don't have to say it for every episode here on out. Don't even bother going on Peacock for the SNLs because they're all hacked to fucking shit. And Dr. G could back me up on this because we were looking for different episodes. And if you go to Peacock and go to because I said, oh my God, they have all the SNLs. Well, like the first maybe 2 seasons are full. And then every season after that, episodes are like 26 minutes long. It's like ridiculous. It's your own fucking show. Like, why are you? I mean, the music guests I get because I don't want to pay for them, cheap fucks. But like, really? 26 minutes? What the hell are you editing? Yet they left in the Chevy Chase Richard Pryor skit. Okay. The job interview skit. Yet the rest of the episodes are like fucking 22 minutes long. I don't get it. Peacock's not going to cut any WCW pay-per-views, but they're going to cut every SNL episode. All right, whatever. Anyway, sorry, I had to go on that rant.
That's okay.
Had to go on that.
Then we had James Woods and Don Henley. Chris Everett hosted with the Eurythmics. Woody Harrelson and David Byrne. John Goodman, Katie Lang. Robert Wagner with Linda Ronstadt and Aaron Neville. Andy McDowell and Tracy Chapman. Ed O'Neill and Harry Connick Jr. This was a good one. Christopher Walken and Bonnie Raitt, the first ever Continental sketch, which was the, he's the ladies' man, the suave debonair guy that he continues to do every time he hosts. Then we had Quincy Jones with Tevin Campbell, Kool Moe Dee, and Big Daddy Kane. Mm-hmm. This was another favorite episode of mine. Tom Hanks and Aerosmith.
Yes, me too.
Where Tom Hanks plays Barry, Gart's cousin, who's a roadie for Aerosmith. And he does check one, two.
Check one. Syphilis. So
and
great.
then they have Aerosmith as the guest, and they're upstairs in the breakfast nook with Wayne's mom, and they come down. They perform the Wayne's World song. Yeah, very very fun episode.
Yep.
Fred Savage and Technotronic, Rob Lowe and the Pogues, Deborah Winger and Eric Clapton, Corbin Burnson and the Smithereens, Alec Baldwin and the B-52s. Then we get to one of the most controversial episodes in SNL history.
Also the greatest.
Yes, with Andrew Dice Clay is scheduled to be the host. Now, this was May 12th, 1990. Nora Dunn was well, first of all, the show was broadcast on a 7-second delay because of Dice. They didn't know what was going to come out of his mouth. Nora Dunn and scheduled musical guest Sinead O'Connor both boycotted this episode in protest of Andrew Dice Clay's jokes about women. So Julie Cruz and Hispanic Boys both were quickly booked to replace Sinead O'Connor. Nora Dunn's contract was not renewed at the end of the season. I do remember the opening monologue where John Lovitz shows up as the devil character, and they kind of walk around, and they would it was kind of like It's a Wonderful Life, like what would have happened had I not hosted Saturday Night Live. And you see, almost like the Wicked Witch of the West, where you see these legs from underneath a giant speaker, and Tice goes, "Who's that?" And he goes, "Oh, that's Nora Dunn. Had you not hosted, she would have been here and crushed by one of Sinead O'Connor's speakers. So it's a good thing that you hosted tonight." Johnny, I remember. Do you remember this episode? You're a big Dice fan.
Yeah, not too much. I remember I just saw it once because obviously it was never repeated again, so I don't remember too much of it.
Yeah, we gotta look on Peacock. I'm sure it's not there.
Well, from what I hear, Mr. Criscuolo was disappointed in his cock, so
Yeah, you gotta check. You gotta check with the Peacock police.
He's not the only one that's disappointed with his cock. Many of his past suitors.
Yeah, and then Candice Berg and the Notting Hill Baileys hosted the season finale.
Yeah. But ironically, we'll get to it, I'm sure. I think it was 1 or 2 years later when Miss O'Connor will, she'll show herself.
You want to go there?
In an infamous episode when eventually she does show up. We'll talk about that.
Yeah, she should never come back after this episode.
I loved it when Jan Hooks does her in the Frank Sinatra show. And he's Cue Ball,
yes.
Every time I look at you, I'm thinking 4 in the side pocket.
Yeah, Sandy.
God. So great.
Right. So that year also we had the 41st Primetime Emmy Awards, hosted by John Larroquette. Your outstanding comedy series was Cheers. Your outstanding drama was L.A. Law. Your outstanding comedy, music, or variety program, The Tracy Ullman Show. Drama and comedy special was tied between Day One and Roe vs. Wade. Your miniseries outstanding was War and Remembrance. In the acting categories, your lead actor in a comedy series was Richard Mulligan for Empty Nest. Candice Bergen took home lead actress in a comedy for Murphy Brown. Carol O'Connor for In the Heat of the Night got outstanding lead actor in a drama. Outstanding lead actress in a drama series, Dana Delaney. Oof, very hachi-machi. China Beach.
Yes, absolutely.
Your outstanding supporting actor in a comedy series was Woody Harrelson, and your outstanding supporting actress in a comedy series was Riel Perlman, both for Cheers. Larry Drake repeats for L.A. Law for the supporting actor in a drama, and Melanie Mayron for 30-something is your supporting actress in a drama series. Some TV notes from that year. January 7th, the television version of Scarface premieres on ABC. Speaking of things cut, 32 minutes of violence, profanity, and sex were edited out, and much of the dialogue was muted or replaced with less offensive alternatives. Why bother? It's like trying to watch Pulp Fiction on Channel 11 at one time.
But it just shows how they're still desperate for programming, and it is a pretty popular movie. So.
On January 15th, Fox airs an episode of Married Children called Her Cups Runneth Over, which would soon become the main source of Terry Ricolta's moral boycott against the show. On January 29th, Shining Time Station, a children's sitcom debuts on PBS, starring Dee Dee Khan, Brian O'Connor, and Dee Dee Starr. And the series introduces British children's television series Thomas the Tank Engine and Friends to America. I cannot believe that Thomas the Tank has been around since 1989. I mean, my kids watch it. It's dull, boring, but and you can't believe George Carlin is one of the narrators too on that show. On March 2nd, Pepsi's controversial advertisement with Madonna and her song "Like a Prayer" airs during NBC showing of the Cosby Show. On March 12th, The Motorcraft Quality Parts 500 is broadcast on ABC. The broadcast is notable because Dr. Jerry Punch, who was reporting from the pit stall of Richard Petty when a fire broke out, proceeded to treat on the spot 2 injured crew members following the incident in which several items of Punch's clothing were singed or melted. ESPN mandated that its pit reporters wear fire retardant suits. Other networks have since adopted the practice. CNBC launches on April 30th that year. That was NBC's answer to the Financial News Network. Here's a big programming block debut. September 22nd, ABC debuts TGIF from 8 to 10, a new programming block for Friday nights with 4 shows: Full House, Family Matters, Perfect Strangers, and Just 10 of Us. It also includes interstitial hosts. The block would become a ratings hit throughout the 90s and lasted until 2000. On October 22nd, Jane Pauley announced that she would be stepping down as co-anchor of NBC's Today after 13 years on the air at the end of the year. And Today newsreader Deborah Norville is immediately announced as Pauley's successor. Yeah, she didn't really last long there. And then on November 15th, the Comedy Channel debuts. It will later merge with another channel, Ha, and become Comedy Central 2 years later. And that is television for the year 1989. But we're not done. We still have to go over news, music, and movies with Scott Criscuolo, J. Arsenio D'Amato, and Dr. G. George Ribellino. I'm Andy Atherton. Year in Pop, 1989. We'll be right back.
Well, you called me up this morning, told me about the new love you found. I said I'm happy for you, I'm really happy for you. Found someone else.
And welcome back to the Year in Pop, 1989, the final year of the decade of the 80s. I'm Scott Criscuolo, along with, of course, Andy Atherton, J. Arsenio D'Amato, and the Dr. G. George Ribellino. We'll be diving into news, music. Somebody had an album out in '89, and movies. And I am very much looking forward to the movie segment because 1989 is arguably one of the greatest years in cinema. But of course, let's talk about the quad of pods, and we'll begin, of course, Andy, with this fine feed, the PTB Pop Experience. Anything quick you want to mention that's hot and heavy right now?
Yeah, Trivia Night's an off week, but we have the last themed episode coming next week. It's classic movies. Then we get into the real fun begins, the semifinals for the Big Gold Belt. Scott, you are a semifinalist, so I wish you the best of luck in your semifinal matchup. Mount Rushmore, is dropping every other Monday. We have variety of topics. We have a couple of Pop Goes the Couch series going right now. That is the Falcon and Winter Soldier. That's myself, Sean, Tim Capel, and Scott Shiflett. And Johnny is part of the other one with Grooney and Greg Diener, where they're covering Mighty Ducks Game Changers. So they're going to be doing that for a while. Their fourth episode will have dropped right before you hear this, and it's going for 10 weeks. So very exciting. It Was a Thing on TV is great. Battlestar in the 25th Century. Sean Scott drops every other Friday. We have the Pop Goes the Classics monthly with the Disney films. The last one was 101 Dalmatians. NBA team is back. I'm so happy that Andrew and Adam have started up doing pods again. Pop Goes the Movies will pop up whenever a new movie come out. Johnny did one with me. We did Coming to America, and I just did Godzilla vs. Kong with Scott Shiflett, and I'll probably have Mortal Kombat coming up next week. And also the newest show here, we got Popcorn Chicken Salad, which is Ben, Logan, and Souza. In the first episode, they watched 1995's Mortal Kombat, so that's a fun listen. So check it out. Yeah, all kinds of great stuff coming out weekly over here in the Pop Experience.
And over here on the other side, the PTB Wrestling Network, episode 575 of the Place B podcast has dropped. Johnny, you were with JR and I as we went over arguably one of our favorite shows of all time.
Yes, sir.
The 1992 Royal Rumble. It was a great episode.
Classic.
Check that out. Yes, absolutely. Marty Sleaze, my man, continues his Sunday jaunt, Pro Wrestling Love. It's been getting some great feedback from everyone. We thank everyone for listening. This past Sunday, he began his newest 5-part series. He and his buddy Pete F3 from PWO, counting down the 25 best matches in the WWF between 1988 and 1997. It's a pretty hot swath. So check that out. Part 1 was this past Sunday. Newest episode of Chronology, Neil and Dave, the go-home show for WrestleMania 9. Doctor, you and I, the most recent episode of the NWA Saturday Special, talking about Samoa Joe, maybe, being at the GPB. Perhaps. And, of course, we'll recap. We recapped NWA Power Surge. And, of course, this coming Saturday, Doctor, you and I will do this week's episode of NWA Power, which was apparently a pretty good episode. And also, by the way, last week, Andy, I want to mention, you made your debut over with, not your debut, but the Making Mount Rushmore Wrestling Edition. Yourself, Logan, Ben, and Steve Riddle, one of my favorite people. Mount Rushmore of WrestleMania matches and Mount Rushmore of Raw the night after WrestleMania. So very, very good. I enjoyed that.
Yeah, thank you. I appreciate it. Every time you let me scratch my wrestling itch. And if you think episode 1 was fun, wait till next month. Episode 2 is tremendous. Johnny is on that show. And I can't say much more. Just it is a must listen. That's all I have to say.
Yes. So all the great stuff over on the here on the PTB Wrestling Network, the fans feed, and of course our other two pod feeds on the quad, the Jenny position, and of course the NoSo, the North South Connection podcast, which of course Johnny is on a couple of shows over there as well. PlaceBeNation.com, your home for everything pop culture. The top 100 GWCW matches of all time continue to count down every Friday, so stay tuned. Keep an eye out on that and all the other great stuff that we have on the website. And PlaceToBeNation.com/Amazon. If you have any gift cards from Christmas you forgot about, or maybe you got one for Easter, the Easter Bunny got you a gift card, and you're buying anything, just use our link and we get a little taste back. So there we go. That's pretty much everything. Let's get back to the fun and games. 1989 in news. Yes. The headlines.
Nothing says fun and games like news.
Yeah. Andy, floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. So let's go through and see what was going on in the world back in 1989. January 20th of that year, George H.W. Bush is sworn in as our 41st president of this United States. Ayatollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, dies at the age of 86 that year. He was the leader of the Iranian Revolution in 79, which overthrew the Shah and established Iran as the first Islamic republic. He was an influential figure in international politics and was responsible for the Iranian hostage crisis. So a very notable figure in history. On April 15th, the FA Cup semifinal between Nottingham Forest and Liverpool at Hillsborough Stadium in Sheffield, England, turned tragic when 96 people were crushed to death, many of them teenagers and children. Estimates state over 700 people were injured at the event. Much later in the year, on December 2nd and 3rd, President George Bush and Soviet Union President Mikhail Gorbachev held their summit in Malta not long after the fall of the Berlin Wall. The Soviet Union was beginning to break down at the time of the meeting and signal an easing of tensions between the two world powers. They declared an end to the Cold War principles and continued a commitment to reducing arms and cooperating. So that was a big event for the world. The Exxon Valdez oil tanker becomes grounded in Alaska's Prince William Sound on March 24th, 1989. The tanker's hull ruptures and around 11 million gallons of crude oil began spilling into the ocean. It became a huge ecological disaster, and thousands of wildlife were harmed or died as a result. It was a huge cleanup effort, and local economies and tourism suffered as a result. Over 1,000 miles of coastline were damaged by the spill, and 25 years later, some of the wildlife are still being negatively impacted. Emperor Hirohito died in Japan at the age of 87, ending a 63-year-long reign, which signals the next, next era, I believe, or whatever it's called. It's a different period. The Showa period became there. Then we had serial killer Ted Bundy is executed in Florida's electric chair. Were you living in Florida around the time? What was going on, like down there, around this execution? What was the feelings?
I just remember people, like everybody was like glued to the TV watching to see, was it really actually going to happen? I remember there being like a buzz around it. I mean, I remember it was some big coverage around it. I don't know if they obviously. I don't think we've really ever seen anything like that since on TV when it comes to electrocution. But I just remember it like being almost like they were covering it. Like how I used to cover when the space shuttle took off, or back in the 80s. It was really strange. But I just remember a lot of buzz around it.
Yeah, that we don't do big executions like that anymore. It's like, there hasn't been like, as many. I guess he was a serial killer that we hadn't seen the likes of, I think, up to that time. So I think that's why it was a big deal. And then the savings and loan crisis led to nearly a quarter of all savings and loan associations requiring bailout due to poor real estate lending practices and easing of regulatory oversight. Then the guy who follows Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, issued a fatwa on death sentence on British writer Salman Rushdie for writing the Satanic Verses. On April 19th, the Central Park jogger case. Tricia Mail is seriously assaulted and raped while jogging New York City Central Park. The convictions of 5 teenagers for the crime are vacated in 2002. The jogger's identity remained secret for years, hence she is referred to as the Central Park jogger. This is a fun fact. In July 27th of that year, the largest prison sentence to date is issued. Thai financial scammer May Chamoy Thiapaso and her accomplices are each sentenced to 141,078 years in prison. That's quite the sentence. I don't think she'll make parole on that one. On August 10th, United States Army General Colin Powell becomes the first black chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff after being nominated by President Bush. Also, in August of that year, in Beverly Hills, California, Lyle and Eric Menendez shoot their wealthy parents to death in the family's den, which becomes a huge tabloid event, and people are glued to their sets as well for that trial. And also, Voyager 2 makes its closest approach to Neptune and its largest moon, Triton. And that is the news in 1989. Scott, what's going on in music? Kind of bring the room back up.
I know, right? Jesus. A lot of happiness there. I remember the Central Park jogger. That was all over the back of the Post and the Daily News and Newsday back then. Let's get some happiness here. Billboard Top 100, the final Billboard list of the 1980s. And again, kind of a crazy year. Let's do the top 10 in reverse, and then we'll check out some. We'll look at some specific songs. Number 10, Giving You the Best That I Got, Anita Baker. That song was always on the radio. Number 9, Baby I Love Your Way and the Freebird Medley by Will to Power, which I absolutely fucking hated. Number 8, Girl You Know It's 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 Girl You Know Girl You Know It's True by Milli Vanilli. Milli fucking Vanilli. We'll talk about them in a minute. Wind Beneath by Wings by Bette Midler. I sing this song to Dr. G every day. Number 6, Cold Hearted by Paula Abdul. Number 5, Miss You Much by Janet. I miss you much. Because she had like a 3-year gap where she wasn't around. She was dealing with marriages and other business stuff, and she came back 3 years later, and that came out. Paula Abdul was the hot one in 89, though. She had Cold Hearted at 6, and then Straight Up at 4. Every Rose Has Its Thorn, Poison, a song that was played constantly on the radio, at number 3. Number 2, My Prerogative by Bobby Brown, his first big hit after leaving New Edition. And the number 1 song at the end of the year, 1989, Look Away by Chicago, which was a great album. Chicago 19, I think.
This was without Peter Cetera, wasn't it?
Yes. No, Peter Cetera was long gone. Peter Cetera left in 84, I think. That's the guy, Jason. I don't remember his last name. So
it's a strange list. You don't look at it as as being that big of a hit. At first, I thought our CEO got a Fugazi list again, but it is the official. It is the official top 100 Billboard.
Right?
You don't think of when you think of big hits, you don't think of Look Away, Chicago.
No, I did have to clean my glasses when I was typing this up because I was like, I kind of remember this, like Look Away being the number 1 song, but I kind of like it was like in the back of my brain. I'm like, it's a good song, but it's not number 1 song of the year. I'm sorry.
It made a lot of money, though. That album made a lot of money. Just taking a look at some other songs on the top 100. We'll point out a few. Another earworm, Waiting for a Star to Fall by Boy Meets Girl. That song was played to death. Lost in Your Eyes by Debbie Gibson. Heaven by Warrant. By the way, that video was shot in the state of Connecticut. Girl, I'm Gonna Miss You, Milli Vanilli. We'll talk about Milli Vanilli. Roxette, The Look. She's got the look. Fine Young Cannibal, She Drives Me Crazy. Another song that used to drive me crazy. Wow, there was a ton of Milli Vanilli in here. I'll Be There For You by Bon Jovi. New Jersey, great album.
Yeah, you know what else? There's a ton of crap in here. Rough year.
There is some fucking slop in here. There is some. How Can I Fall by Breather. How can I fall? Man, there was a ton of Milli Vanilli.
I mean, there's New Kids on the Block song 26. I'll Be Loving You Forever.
Yeah. I'll be loving you forever. Oh my God. Let's see. Toy Soldiers by Martika. My best friend Tom at the time loved this song. And I think he liked Martika because she was kind of hot, but she vanished off the face of the earth.
Step by step, heart to heart, we all fall down.
And it was played to death in fucking skating rinks, and oh my God, crazy. Living Years, Mike and the Mechanics. That's a pretty good song. That was at number 31. Nana Cherry, Buffalo Stance. I used to play at my carnival all the time. Oh God. Great White, Once Bitten, Twice Shy. Bat Dance.
That's a good one.
That is a great song. Bat Dance by Prince. We'll talk about
Unfortunately, they couldn't do the encore at the. That's good. Not a good joke.
Oh, Hanging Tough. Don't diss every New Kids on the Block song. Hanging Tough. Express Yourself, Madonna. Madonna had a few good songs on here. Armageddon It, Def Leppard. Yes, at number 71. The great song from an album that people don't really think about, GNR Lies, which was kind of an album of leftovers. However, one of my favorite GNR songs of all time, Patience. At number 6. Great song, Patience. Speaking of GNR, Paradise City, kind of a leftover from the year before at 86. And the number 100 song was Keep On Moving by Soul to Soul. So.
We also had some decent, Tone Loc's 2 hits for that year.
Yep.
We had, also had Close My Eyes Forever, Lita Ford, Ozzy Osbourne duet. Love that song.
Yep. More GNR on here. Welcome to the Jungle at 74. So some good stuff. Tiffany. Speaking of Peter Cetera, him and Cher, After All. So good stuff. Good stuff in the top 100. The top albums. And there were some great albums that came out in 1989. The number 1 album, surprisingly, was Don't Be Cruel, Bobby Brown. Made a lot of money that year. Hangin' Tough, make fun of New Kids on the Block all you want. Mr. Atherton was number 2 for the year, Hangin' Tough. Forever Your Girl by Bon Jovi, by Paul Abdul at 3. New Jersey by Bon Jovi at number 4. But at numbers 5 and 7, guys, 2 albums in the top 10.
Billy Joel. No?
No.
Thank God. Andy saying thank God.
No, there's some shitty Politi in here, though. Appetite for Destruction.
I don't like Skinny Politi for crying out loud.
Appetite for Destruction at number 5. GNR Lies at number 7. Hysteria. Great follow-up. It took 3 years, or longer than that, 4 years. But Hysteria by Def Leppard at number 9. And, of course, Girl, You Know It's True by Milli Vanilli at number 10. Vivid by Living Colour. Good album. Like a Prayer, Madonna. Other albums on the top 200. Winger. I can't believe I just said Winger. Let's see. Loked After Dark. Tone Loc. There you go, Andy. I wanted to mention it. There you go. God, anything else here? Dirty, Rotten, Filthy, Stinkin' Rich by Warrant. Good album. Brattle and Hum by U2. Also a good album. The soundtrack to Cocktail.
That was a good Cocktail. That's a good one.
Yep, it was. Sonic Temple by The Cult, which had a great song, Firewoman. Fantastic song. Faith by George Michael. God, I love that album. Love that album.
Yes.
What an album. Faith, George Michael. Let's see. Anything else here? Let's see. Don Henley, The End of the Innocents. That's a good album. Top to bottom.
It is. Yeah.
Absolutely. Martika, of course, she had her one-hit wonder album there. Let's see. Anything else good here? OU812 at number 71. Van Halen's second album with Sandy.
INXS was actually a pretty good album.
What's that?
Kick by NXS was a pretty good album.
Yes, so absolutely a very good album. The Great Radio Controversy by Tesla, also a good album. American Dream by Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young. Oh God. Anyway,
Voice smooth up in ya.
Yes, absolutely. The Doobie Brothers had an album that year. Wow, Cycles.
Kiss. Was this one of the first Kiss albums without the makeup?
Yes.
Mashes,
No, I think it
Crashes.
was. Yeah, I think it was. Soundtrack to Ghostbusters 2 as well. I Want to Have Some Fun by Samantha Fox. Another good. Well, that was also probably a one-hit wonder. So, great albums that came out in 1989. Dr. G, we talked about Appetite for Destruction. Did you have GNR Lies in the old Tamarack Walkman there?
Of course.
Yeah. There were some weird songs on that album. One in a Million. Can't repeat the lyrics here. But
I used to love her, but I had to kill her.
That's my mantra the last 25 years. So Chris, great top 200 albums that came out in 1989. But yes, we will say that in 1989, Billy Joel released Stormfront.
The album did better in 1990, though, I believe.
Oh, it did. And we'll get into that, sadly, Dr. G, when Andy fired you, so you couldn't talk about it. In the 1990 episode,
Future endeavored.
I fought for you, but
Future endeavored. I always wanted to be future.
They said about me on Main Event. I'm listening to I got rid of Jordan Duncan. I'm like, what? I did not do anything of that.
Shitty Politi at number 201. All right, let's talk about Milli Vanilli for a sec, guys. We're gonna go off the reservation for a minute.
I obviously have something to say. So
Milli Vanilli. How do we all get duped by Milli Vanilli? I mean, my friend Tom loved those guys, and we did the whole body bump and everything. But I remember the concert. It was right here in the fine state of Connecticut, Mr. Atherton, at Lake Compounce, when the tape skipped. It was right
Really?
here.
I did not know that.
It was at Lake Compounce. Girl, you know it's girl, you know it's girl, you know. It happened right here in Connecticut. Were you a Milli Vanilli fan, Andy?
Yeah, I mean, I liked them. It was fine. I mean, I was a senior in high school, so they used to play it at the dances or whatever, doing whatever was going on. So, yeah, I mean, I believed it. I was duped.
I think everybody was. Then they had that second album. The hits weren't as good, and then of course the tape skip, and then their manager pretty much admitted that these guys can't sing, and then everything. We'll talk more about their Grammy on our next episode. Stormfront was not sung by fake singers, even though Andy wants to try to admit that.
Milli Vanilli, a lot of great careers have died in Connecticut, so they're not the first. And they went to the last.
This is not the truth.
Oh God, except mine, which flourished because everybody else sucked. Some mediocrity had to come from somewhere. We'll talk more about Stormfront when we get to 1990. But since you may not be with us, Dr. G, what did you like about that album? Did that album feel different to you than anything before that? What was it about?
Yeah, it was a little. It had a rock edge to it. I don't know. It was a little different from his other stuff. I don't know. I guess the reason why I like him as a performer is because really not. Certain artists, the songs all have that same sound to it. Mm-hmm. You could listen to a different Billy song, and there's just it's him, but it's I don't know. He just has he kind of goes along with the times, and he kind of late 80s, I guess early 90s. That was the sound for that time. Stormfront, just like when he did Glass Houses, and it had a little bit of that punk style of music, in the early 80s. So that's I mean, I like the way it kind of rocks out a little bit. He changed producers. Phil Ramone didn't do that album.
Right.
Didn't produce that album. So he wanted to do something a little different, and I think it worked. And his band started changing around that time. I know he gets a lot of flack for that, but you know what? A lot of those people are still in the band now, and I think that the band he has now is good for the way he's able to perform. So I enjoy going to see his band. His band's top notch, and I think a lot of those, he brought in like Crystal Taliaferro for this album.
Yep.
Obviously Mark Rivera's around, Dave Rosenthal. Just a little bit of a different sound. So
yep,
I love the album.
Yep, no, I do too. Stormfront, she's that's not her style. Go to extremes, and it's a tremendous album. Made a lot of money. The Grammys that year, February of '89.
Wait, Andy, what do you think about the Stormfront album?
Oh yeah, it's great. No, I liked it. We Didn't Start the Fire. It was catchy. Down Easter Alexa, I Go to the Streams. Yeah, it's fine. I'm not deep. I'm not a deep cut guy. You know that, but the singles I dig. So
you're such a consumer.
Wah.
Johnny, did you like Stormfront?
I like it's like hit or miss. I like half of it, and I can't stand the other half. Like like Down Easter Licks, I can't stand, and Leningrad, State of Grace, When in Rome, real bad. But I like So It Goes. We Didn't Start the Fire. That's Not a Style, and Extremes I really like, and Shameless. So I like half of it. Which is rare for, usually Billy, I like, all the songs. So you could tell he's starting to go down a little in the late 80s for me.
Yeah, though there's a couple. When in Rome's not one of my favorites either.
Yeah. But We Didn't Start the Fire. I mean, that's a classic. And for dummies like me, it's a good history lesson.
Yeah. My girlfriend was telling me her friend used to get upset in high school because they used to be able to use it for a school project in history class.
Dr. G and I think there should be a sequel. He should do a sequel song. So a lot's happened since Rock and Roll and Cola Wars. So
that's the truth.
So anyway, the Grammys came out. The Grammys were that February for the stuff in 1988. Billy Crystal hosted. The record of the year was "Don't Worry, Boom, Boom, Be Happy." Bobby McFerrin, which also won Song of the Year. Faith won Album of the Year, and Tracy Chapman won Best New Artist. That year's Video Music Awards, the MTV Video Music Awards, were in September. Arsenio Hall, fittingly hosted, was held at the Amphitheater in L.A. Michael Jackson, another good year for him, 9 nominations, but it was a ladies' night. Paula Abdul and Madonna walked out with 4 apiece. Video of the year was This Note's for You by Neil Young. I missed
Maybe that was a trivia question somewhere once. I don't know.
Well, it shouldn't have been because he sucked and sucks the song. So we're not allowing Neil Young songs on any Quadapods. Best Male Video, Veronica by Elvis Costello. Straight Up by Paula Abdul, Best Female Video. And Best Group Video, a song that I did an exceptional karaoke duet with Mark Claire 2 years ago. Living Color with Cult of Personality, which we all know what wrestler used that song eventually. Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, another great class, of course, guys, as they continue to build. Dion, Otis Redding, The Stones, The Temptations, Stevie Wonder, and Phil Spector, who should have his revoked. Music notes to wrap it up. On January 23rd, James Brown is sentenced in Georgia to 6 years in jail in connection with a police chase through 2 different states, and I think he had guns in his trunk or something. Hell, don't shoot. On March 21st, Madonna's Like a Prayer music video in late 88 attracts criticism for its use of the Catholic Church's iconography, cross burning, but garners praise for its interpretation of discrimination, rape, and faith. Pepsi drops Madonna as a spokesperson out of fear the video will cause religious groups to boycott the company. On July 9th, all 4 original members of the Monkees reunite for a concert performance at the Amphitheater. The following day, the quartet attended an induction ceremony at the Hollywood Walk of Fame, where they receive a star. And as of right now, there's only 2 Monkees left, as I believe since then we have lost Davy Jones and Peter Tork. So, weekend in August, 11th and 12th, the Moscow Music Peace Festival is held in the Soviet Union. The event is put together by Doc McGee and the Make-A-Wish Foundation. Features Bon Jovi, Ozzy, Skid Row, Motley Crue, Cinderella, and the Scorpions. I'm sure there was quite a bit of milk drinking and prayer saying on that boat, on that flight. I don't believe there was any alcohol or other things. Is that the tour where he snorted ants? Is that the tour where in the Dirt book and in the movie Tommy Lee said that Ozzy snorted the ants. I wonder if that was this one. Wouldn't surprise me. I bet you it was this one. I think it was. I think it was mentioned on Motley Crue's Behind the Music, because they were sober at this point. Motley Crue. They all got clean because what's his name almost died, Nikki Sixx. So I think they were clean on this trip. And meanwhile, everybody else was snorting, injecting, smoking. And I'm pretty sure that that was the tour that Ozzy Osbourne snorted ants. But anyway, finally, on September 9th, Madonna gives a risque performance at the 1989 MTV Video Music Awards. Clad in baggy black sweatpants and a black bustier, she shocks the audience by simulating masturbation. The version of the song used in the show would later serve as the opening number of her 1990 Blonde Ambition World Tour, which made, I think, the most money of her career. I don't think a tour has made that much since. And that, everyone, is 1989 in music. Pretty good year in music. Very weird, very eclectic. But like I said at the beginning of the show, I felt it was a harbinger of things to come in the 1990s in music. So once we start getting into those Billboard top 100s, woo, we're going to see some crazy changes. But to wrap things up for the decade, let's go to the big screen. Andy Atherton, 1989 in movies.
All right. Well, we got to start off, though, talking about some movies that came out the year before in 88. At the 61st Annual Academy Awards, held March 29th, 1989, there was actually no host that year. They said the Oscars ceremony actually came off pretty good. Not so much when they tried it last time. But it was a big night for Rain Man, the motion picture. It took home Best Picture and Best Director, Barry Levinson. Best Actor, Dustin Hoffman. Jodie Foster is your Best Actress for The Accused. Kevin Kline, in a hysterical performance in A Fish Called Wanda, is your Best Supporting Actor. Gina Davis kind of comes out of nowhere and wins the Best Supporting Actress for The Accidental Tourist. Your Best Original Screenplay, again, Rain Man by Ronald Bass and Barry Morrow. And your Best Adapted Screenplay is Dangerous Liaisons by Christopher Hampton. Rain Man had led the field with 8 nominations and had the most wins with 4. Your Special Achievement Oscar went to Richard Williams for the animation direction of Who Framed Roger Rabbit. That was just incredible stuff there. Let's talk about the top 10 before we get into the bulk of the movies that came out in 1989. We have at number 10, Born on the 4th of July, the Tom Cruise star, where he took a dramatic turn. And then the movie that really was responsible for revitalizing an entire studio, and that was Disney. This was the start of the second golden age. There's a great documentary, and it's actually on Disney Plus. I bought it years ago on DVD, but it's really good, called Waking Sleeping Beauty, all about the era. But I'm talking about The Little Mermaid at number 9. We will cover that in a few months on the Pop Goes the Classics. Looking forward to that episode. Number 8, we have Ghostbusters 2, the follow-up to the original. Not nearly as good, but not a terrible movie, I would say. Number 7, Honey, I Shrunk the Kids. At number 6, Lethal Weapon 2, which is, I think, better than the first Lethal Weapon, in my opinion. You guys have anything on Lethal Weapon 2 or anything I've mentioned so far?
Oh, it's a great sequel.
We see
a lot of sequels in the.
I think it was better than the first.
Mm-hmm. Diplomatic Immunity. They just shoots him. I felt so bad for poor. Was it Patsy Kensit? You know.
Yeah.
that was a effed up scene. I'm sorry. They toss him in the water and he sees his girlfriend, drowned with his varsity jacket on. He's got to dislocate his shoulder to get out. At number 5, we had Dead Poet Society, a very good Robin Williams performance. Mm-hmm. Number 4, Look Who's Talking, kind of start of John Travolta's comeback here. Back to the Future Part 2, which, at number 3, people have differing opinions on it. Some people love it. Some people just really hate it because of all the messing around at the time. At number 2, we have Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade. And at number 1, still to this day, I think one of the best superhero movies of all time, Batman, starring Michael Keaton, directed by Tim Burton, and Jack Nicholson as the Joker. Dr. G, you a fan of this Batman film?
Yeah, I do. I liked it. I mean, I think it was. Would you say it was kind of like the start of, obviously how they've done a lot of the superhero movies in the last, 10, 15 years. But I thought, obviously compared to, say, like when we had Superman in the 70s, just the the way they produced it was so much realistic, more realistic, I guess. So, but I do like that. You know, I'm not a big Batman fan, but I enjoyed this movie though.
Yeah, people were actually surprised and a little skeptical of Tim Burton at the time because he was like that weird, quirky director, and people weren't sure how he was going to handle, you know, a known character. Johnny, you have any thoughts to share on Batman? Jack Nicholson as the Joker?
I loved it. I saw it in the theater, and and people were also skeptical with how good Michael Keaton would be.
Yes.
He was tremendous, and of course
He was tremendous.
Nicholson, epic performance.
Yeah, still the best Batman in my opinion. Scott, I know you love this movie.
Saw it 3 times. Saw it 3 times in the theater. It is still my favorite. My favorite interpretation of Batman is Michael Keaton. And it was also huge because it was the first Batman where we went back to the Dark Knight, going back to the Frank Miller books of the mid 80s. Because in movies and TV, the last Batman that we had was, of course, Adam West. So we were talking, goofy, campy, schlocky stuff. And we went back to kind of old school and went back to kind of almost the Batman of the 40s. And then Tim Burton took it in a whole new direction. But I remember seeing the poster first show up in the theater in Milford when I was 15, I think. And I went, oh my God, we're going to have a Batman movie. Like Dr. G said, I loved Christopher Reeve as Superman, but Superman, the superheroes go in phases. Batman was hot in the 60s. Superman was hot in the 50s. Batman was hot in the 60s. Superhero movies didn't do anything in the early to mid 70s, but then of course we had Christopher Reeve in the late 70s and throughout the 80s. By the late 80s, those movies sucked, and then we wanted to go back to something a little more realistic. So the best part about that Batman movie is that it just came at the right time, right place at the right time for superhero in the movies. After we had Christopher Reeve and Superman: The Quest for Peace, which is unwatchable crap, which we talked about. So it was a good time. It was a perfect time for Batman to come out at this time, in this alliteration. It was perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Still the best Batman in my opinion. Well, Batman portrayal. Mm-hmm. All right. Other movies that came out that year, we have The Experts. Not a great movie, but is notable for again part of John Travolta's comeback, and is where actually met his wife Kelly Preston. Gleaming the Cube came out that year. 3 Fugitives. Who's Harry Crumb? Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure. I saw that movie in the theater. I thought it was good. I don't know if I've ever seen the second one all the way through, and I saw parts of the new one. I was kind of like, this is really what it is. Oh God. Then we had The Burbs, very funny Tom Hanks, The Mighty Quinn, starring Denzel, Dream a Little Dream with the 2 Coreys, Lean on Me. Here we go, Skin Deep. I love this movie. I don't know. Have you guys familiar? This is the John Ritter movie where he's like a womanizer, I guess. It's famous for the scene where the glow in the dark condoms.
Yeah, pretty good.
And he actually ends up. We talked about earlier American Gladiators. One of the American Gladiators is in the movie. I think it was Zap. He ends up having a one-night stand with her, which is very funny. The morning after with them. The Adventures of Baron Munchausen. Chances Are, starring Sybil Shepherd, Robert Downey Jr. Heathers, great cult classic. Christian Slater, Winona Ryder. Cyborg came out that year. Dead Calm. With I believe that was with Sam Neill and Nicole Kidman. The Dream Team. Major League came out that year.
Okay, we got to stop. You can't just pass through Major League.
No, we're not going to stop.
Major League. Major League. Fuck you, Joe Boo. Major League is great. You run like Maze, but you hit like shit. That's like the most quotable baseball movie of all time. So great. So great. Come on, Dorn. None of that Olay bullshit.
It is. It's on my top baseball movie list.
It absolutely is. Dr. G liked it because he likes when the Yankees are the bad guys. You ever notice every baseball movie, the Yankees are always the bad guys because they're like the team everybody. And then of course, by the time they got to Major League 3, when the Indians were actually good, they had to send them to the minors because we couldn't feel bad for the Indians because by 1995 they were scoring 1,000 runs in real life. So, but Major League, that's a movie that needed a moment of greatness.
I did do a very good Laugh in Theater, and also cheap plug, the next episode of Blockbuster Rewind is about the Major League franchise. That is Scott Shiflett's choice, so that should be coming out next week. Looking forward to recording that with the fellas. And Matt Souza is our guest on that show, so looking forward to it. We also had Say Anything, very famous scene with the boombox.
Like the heat, your eyes. Sorry, good song, Peter Gabriel.
Speaking of great baseball movies, Field of Dreams. If you build it, they will come.
They will come.
There you go, Scott. Now, I've never seen this because I heard this is a very scary movie. Pet Sematary.
It is.
Fred Gwynn, right?
Yes, Fred Gwynn. Oh God, I can't remember who the husband was. The kid was. Yeah, it's Fred Gwynn's the most main character, but it is one of the best adaptations of a Stephen King book. I mean, it's like at Salem's Lot, Carrie, Cujo levels. I mean, it is when that kid comes back. It's chilling, and the remake was okay, but it didn't. This one is amazing. It's one of the most amazing Stephen King movies ever. I mean, it was absolutely chilling to see. And then what he does to Fred Gwynn is just breaks your heart. Not Herman Munster, but if you want to be legitimately scared by a Stephen King movie, Pet Sematary is the way to go. It's amazing.
All right. Also, Loverboy came out. That's the Patrick Dempsey movie with Kirstie Alley when she was hot. Earth Girls Are Easy. Here we go. One of the best movies for guys who like movies. Dalton, Right Boot. Got it. Roadhouse. Love this movie.
Love this movie. Roadhouse. Love Roadhouse. Dr. G, do you remember who was in Roadhouse?
The Funker.
That's right.
Was it Funk? Terry Funk?
Terry Funk. That's right. The Funker was in it. Yep.
That's right.
Great movie. Love it.
Yep. Also, here we go. Speaking of wrestlers, No Holds Barred.
Yes.
Oh,
Let her rip.
Are you guys
Scott's
still
favorite.
talking about that in your pop culture corner on the mothership?
No, finally no. Actually, remember Johnny? I said it last night. Nope. By January of '92, sadly, No Holds Barred fell off the top 10 moneymaker. Justin was very sad, but it finally fell off the top 10. But it survived. I mean, God, what did it last? Like 7 straight podcasts, and it didn't fall off the top 10. What a great movie! Got the Blu-ray in the other room. So great. Let her rip.
Do the Right Thing also came out that year. Groundbreaking film. Here you go. Another one up your alley, Scott. License to Kill. Bond. Yeah.
Not a good Bond movie. No, the franchise was in tough straits. License to Kill is not a good movie. Not a good movie at all.
Here's a movie I would love to do on Laugh in Theater. When Harry Met Sally. Love this movie so much. UHF. Very.
That's one we should do on Laugh in Theater.
Yes.
Tremendous.
Johnny, if it's Freeman, we are doing it.
Spatula City. Spatula City.
Spatula City.
Stanley Spatowski.
So good. I love UHF.
Yeah, it was surprising. It really bombed. For Al, it really bombed in theaters, but it became a cult classic afterwards.
Yep.
Also, we got here you go, Scott. Friday the 13th, Part 8. Jason Takes Manhattan.
Even though 2/3 of the movie's in Vancouver, because they were too cheap to do it actually in Manhattan. Literally, like 15 minutes of the movie is in Manhattan. But I'm looking at the list, Andy. There's 2 movies you didn't put on here, but that's okay. That they're minor. But the big 3 horror movie franchises all had movies that year. Okay. This was the best of the 3 of them. Friday the 13th, Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan. Also coming out in '89 was Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers, which was and then Nightmare on Elm Street 5, The Dream Child, which is not that great either. No, it's not. Anyway, I just wanted to make that point. But I mean, there's a great trailer, Johnny, on YouTube, one of the first ones where Jason is standing at the Garden during a Rangers game, and they confused. I think like John Van Beesbrook skates by him and says, "You're wearing my mask" or something. It's some ridiculous like local ad for Friday 13th Part 8, and the Beezer skates by him and goes, "You're wearing my mask." It's pretty funny, actually. But yeah, it's pretty funny. But anyway, yep. That was the last one. That was the last one Paramount paid for, by the way.
Just so you guys know, UHF is on Amazon Prime for free streaming. So.
Yes.
Just say
Fantastic.
all you gotta do is pick a date. All right. We also have Turner and Hooch came out that year. Another movie that I love, and it's a great dramedy, Parenthood. With Steve Martin.
Yeah.
Steve Martin. Yep.
Lots of a very good cast. The Abyss came out that year.
Good movie.
Uncle Buck. Very funny.
Another good movie. Love Uncle Buck.
One of John Candy's best. Yeah.
Yes, one of John Candy's best. Macaulay Culkin's in it also. Sex, Lies, and Videotape.
Great movie.
This is a movie that, anytime I like get the itch to screenwrite, I pop it in to kind of get me motivated. It's The Big Picture. It was, I believe it was Christopher Guest directed, but starring Kevin Bacon as a guy who gets out of film school and then just lets, his somewhat little bit of fame and deals go to his head. Really great movie. One of my favorites. Sea of Love with Al Pacino and Ellen Barkin.
Yep.
Crimes and Misdemeanors, the Woody Allen film. Drugstore Cowboy, starring Matt Dillon.
Yep.
Now, I don't think I've ever seen this. Shocker. Where would you put this in terms of horror movies of that time, Scott?
One of the lesser ones. It's not terrible. It reminds people of Scanners, which was a better movie in the early 80s. It's okay. Like I said, 1989 was a rough year for horror. The slasher genre was slowly fading. So they were trying to find other, avenues to be scared. This was okay. Low budget. Nothing to write home about.
I just remember Megadeth doing a cover of No More Than Mr. Nice Guy. That's all I really remember about it.
Yes, they did. My brother had that album too. But yep, that's true. Yep.
We have My Left Foot. All Dogs Go to Heaven came out there. Here's another one on my wish list for Laughing Theater. Harlem Nights. I love this movie.
Awesome movie. Awesome movie. What a cast. Holy shit.
Basically, Eddie Murphy gets to work with his heroes. That's really what it is.
It is. I mean, all you have to say is Eddie Murphy, Richard Pryor, Red Fox. End of story. That's it. End of story. And on top of it, Arsenio's in it, and Della Reese. Oh my God, that cast is fucking. And Michael Learned, and
Danny Aiello.
Oh God, who the fuck else is in it? It's a bunch of. It's loaded. Jasmine Guy. A couple other.
Red Fox.
Red Fox. Yeah, that cast is loaded. Tremendous movie.
So funny.
Steel
Magnolias, which I will admit I do like this movie.
I knew you were going to say that.
No, come on. I'm sorry. Shirley MacLaine and Olympia Dukakis, every scene they're in together is magic. They are just so funny. Weezer and I forgot Olympia Dukakis' character's name. No, it's a really good movie. I could do without, some of the other parts of the movie, but I think they make the movie for me. A movie I only saw for the first time last year for Laughing Theater, National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation.
Oh, so good.
The War of the Roses with Kathleen Turner, Michael Douglas, Driving Miss Daisy, and Glory. So it was a great year in 1989.
Christmas Vacation. Wow, that's it's a holiday classic.
Yeah. Yep. So that's gonna bring an end close to 1989. Great year and a great decade. Scott, anything to say as we close it out?
Well, it was a great year for movies. It was a great year for a lot of things. And as we say farewell to the 80s, we will say farewell to our beloved quad host, I guess you could say. Scheduling and such, Dr. G has to leave us. It has nothing to do with him hating the 90s. He scheduling things, and he had to. But hopefully you'll join us down the line, Doctor, for the occasional guest appearance again.
Oh, definitely. I'll definitely come back. I really had a great time. I mean, I can't believe we started this back in what was it, 1972 we started with.
Yep.
Wow.
Absolutely did.
Was that a couple of years ago already?
Yeah, I think we've been doing this show for about 2 years now, I think.
Yeah, that's crazy,
wow.
Right? Yeah, it's crazy.
In some ways, it seems like it's, gone so fast, but, it's been a long year with COVID and everything, but
yeah.
Wow. I can't believe it, but no, it's great.
Yeah, it was tremendous. To peel back curtain, we do these about every 6 weeks. Like to give you guys, because there's a lot. This show takes a lot, and it does great numbers on the feed, and that's all thanks to you, gentlemen. You guys bring the information. George, we will miss you. We understand. Pods. Everybody's giving up their free time to do them, so we appreciate all the time and all the great knowledge and commentary you brought to the show. Hopefully, like we said, hopefully you'll be back. It's going to be odd when we get to the next episode, having a different fourth chair, but we'll make it work.
Well, so I know you guys will, and I appreciate it. Andy, you do immense amount of research and work on this to help put this together, so I appreciate that. Definitely helpful, all your notes. So again, thanks for all you do, and thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it. It's been fun.
My OCD comes in handy once in a while, so.
I have a feeling
you have more OCD than Scott. That's amazing.
I have a feeling G's gonna rejoin us for 1993. That's when River of Dreams comes out.
And then back to 1996 when the Yankees won the World Series.
That's when I'll fucking leave.
And then 98. And then
that's what I'm
Yankees
going.
win the World Series. It's like he never left, right?
It'd be nice for Johnny to call some others team a bunch of fucking scumbags for once. So, but John, the doctor will be back from time to time, of course. We will sometimes probably do episodes just the three of us, but as Andy said, we'll of course have some rotating guests in that fourth seat, and we look forward to it. So, yeah. But our next episode we delve into the 1990s. Andy, I'm very excited about that.
Yeah, new decade. I mean, for me, I turned 18 in 1990, so a different perspective. I mean, the 90s were my college years, so I'm looking forward to the music parts of that. And television might be a little bit of a blind spot at some points for me because I wasn't home as much watching TV. But no, I'm really looking forward to it. This is one of the favorite shows I do, just because of you guys and because we get to talk about stuff that we grew up loving, and it's great. So speaking of things we love, let's kind of go around now and see what's everybody got going on. What do you want to point people to that's recent or coming up? Social media presence. Dr. G, you have the honors. Let you go first.
All right. Well, I have the NWA Saturday Special, which airs every Saturday morning. So you have that, cup of coffee and listen to us rant and rave about the NWA, which has been a lot of fun now that we have some shows back. So,
absolutely,
you catch that every Saturday morning. What are we up to now? We're up to episode 50 now, right?
Yeah, this coming Saturday, depending when this drops. This coming Saturday, as we're taping, will be our 58th episode of Saturday. Right, going back to when they were just power recaps, but we're doing 58 episodes of the Saturday morning show. So pretty cool.
So it's been a lot of fun. And then we're going to have a special, the NWA Crock and Roll. We had to take a pause due to the WWE moving the WWE Network to the Peacock Network. So... but we're doing some random shows. So we have one coming up, and I think Scott knows the schedule of when they're dropping. I don't even know, but we'll get it out there for you. But keep listening to that. But it's been a lot of fun. I mean, I've been enjoying going back and watching some of that old school NWA because back in the mid '80s. I know that WWE had the better entertainment value, if you want to say, or the way the glitz and the glamour, but the wrestling itself was so good in the mid '80s. If you ever get a chance to watch some of it, you have to take a look at it because it's great stuff. But that's it. That's what I got going on. But thank you guys again.
All right, Johnny, what do you got going on?
All right, at JadeIce7 on Twitter, and as you mentioned before, the Pop Experience. With Grooney and Greg, we do Mighty Ducks Game Changers. Just dropped episode 4, and look next month for a special Mount Rushmore wrestling version. It was a hot show, so definitely check that one out. You won't be disappointed. A lot of entertainment.
Yes, people got to bring their game if they're when they're on a show for the first time. You can't just walk in the door and you got to stretch before you get into the game, so to speak. That's all I'm going to say about that show. Scott, Just check me out. I'm everywhere. Is that the usual?
Pretty much what you see. Look out the window. What you see is what you get now. Follow me on Twitter at PTB Podfather. Follow the brand on Twitter at Place to Be Nation, and that goes for both of us, Andy, both the PTB Wrestling Network and the PTB Pop Experience, all of the shows that we have. And G's got to get used to his Twitter. Follow him on Twitter too at Dr. G PTB, because he talks a lot about the Yankees and Aaron Boone, his favorite guy. Billy Martin can manage the Yankees right now and probably do a better job than Aaron Boone. Oh no. Anyway, yeah, check me out. All the good shows on the network, and I'm everywhere.
Right. Speaking of Twitter, I have to give a shout out to our good friend Sean Kidd, who has set up the Pop Experience Twitter. So follow it at Place Experience on Twitter. So finally, this network that I've been running for a year now has its Twitter. And we get some shout outs on there, hopefully up the engagement a little bit. And just, check me out on the Wrestling Network. Unfortunately, we had some scheduling issues, so Evolution is delayed a little bit, but that will be myself and Callum McDougall. We will be talking about Shawn Michaels' career, as well as looking to do Great Debate Wrestling again soon. And Making Mount Rushmore Wrestling will be dropping monthly. Here on the feed, I talked about earlier, we have Making Mount Rushmore, Pop Goes the Couch, Pop Goes the Classics. Also, the dropping monthly is myself and Miranda, our Muppet podcast, the most sensational, celebrational, inspirational, Muppetational podcast. That is so much fun. I love getting together with Miranda and just talking about things that we both love. We have a great time doing that. And trivia night, check that out every other Friday. It's going to go till the end of June when we crown our first ever winner, and I get to either mail somebody or hand somebody a big gold belt. So we'll have to see what happens there. So I want to say a big thank you to Scott Criscuolo and Jared Sandovano and Dr. G, George Ribellino. Thank you for everything and being part of this to get us off the ground. The first was this 18th episode I think we're doing, or something like that, 17th episode. But maybe we'll, like Scott said, maybe it'll be just the three of us, me, him, and Johnny, or we'll bring a fourth person in to guest. We have some people in mind that are familiar voices, and we'll get them in here, and we'll just keep the train running. So look for us to drop about every 6 weeks or so. That's our schedule. But I want to say a big thank you to these guys. Once again, thank you for listening, and we will see you in 1990. Take care, everybody.
Okay. Okay, it's okay. Okay, what?